Hare Krishna, am I audible?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji, you're audible. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my most humble obeisances.
Humble obeisances.
I just want to give a brief introduction before we start. So it's our great fortune to welcome and introduce His Grace Vamsi Vadana Prabhu, who's going to be teaching the first 4 chapters of Canto 1. And he's a senior faculty member in both Mayapur Institute and VIHE. And he's been teaching for over 25 years. Originally, he's from ISKCON Pune, and he's teaching courses like TTC, Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhava, and Bhakti Vedanta. And he's also teaching in Malaysia, Singapore, and parts of South Africa, and all over India. And Prabhuji, professionally, he is a MD doctor. So not only he's spiritually very qualified, but professionally also he's very qualified. And he's also been teaching in very prestigious colleges like IIT Kharagpur, and he's been preaching to various youths as well. So it's a great fortune to actually study from him. So we would like to welcome you, Prabhuji, and hope to get maximum benefit from your association.
Hare Krishna. So should we begin?
Yes, Prabhuji, you can begin.
Okay. So how many participants are there?
25 students total.
Oh, 20. Okay. Okay, so thank you all very much for joining the course. And we will try to render the service to all the assembled devotees. And so we'll begin with the Mangalachan. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsya Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshakarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so has some part of the preface introduction something been covered?
No, Prabhuji, today is the first session.
Okay.
Only orientation has been done.
Okay. And I think so it would be nice if more devotees keep their videos on. Otherwise, it appears we are speaking to the computer rather than anybody else. So can everyone hear?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Can
Hare
everyone
Krishna.
see the screen?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, fine. So already the orientation session has been covered regarding what is the Bhakti Vaibhava course. Of course, these courses had been designed by Srila Prabhupada himself. All the names of the courses, what should be covered in the courses, everything has been given by Srila Prabhupada himself. So the Bhakti Vaibhava course is covering the first 6 cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam. As we all are aware that Srila Prabhupada started the translations and purports on the Srimad Bhagavatam right here in India. So way back in the 1960 onwards, 60, 61, that time itself he had started when he was staying in Delhi, Chippiwara, and then Vrindavan. So in these places he was doing these translations. And as we know, first he published this first canto in 3 volumes, and he carried these sets of 3 volumes to the US along with him in 1965. And then for the rest of his life, one of Srila Prabhupada's major service and major contributions to the world was the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so it was his daily schedule every morning, early in the morning, maybe at around 1 o'clock in the morning. he would rise to give us these translations and purports. And so Srila Prabhupada has definitely put in immense endeavor to give us the Srimad Bhagavatam, practically till his last breath. Those of you who have seen the videos, you may have seen how till his last breath, devotees were holding the dictaphone in front of his mouth. As he was lying on the bed, he was still translating the Bhagavatam because he considered that a very important service, because that was the instruction which he received from his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Whenever you get money, print books. So he took that instruction as his life and soul. And so therefore, he had been doing that till his last breath. And Srila Prabhupada, he said it very often, that he didn't write these books simply for devotees to distribute them, but for devotees to read them, study them. That was what Srila Prabhupada very much wanted. And so, somebody can read this quote of Srila Prabhupada.
Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela. Should I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, go ahead.
Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 24.278. All of the devotees connected with this Krishna consciousness movement must read all of the books that have been translated. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain an eternal blissful life of transcendental pleasure.
Okay, so this was Srila Prabhupada's desire that all the devotees connected with this Krishna consciousness movement, so no exceptions there. Prabhupada says all the devotees must read all of the books that have been translated, and especially is focusing on Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad. Otherwise, if we don't do that, then one will simply engage in sense gratification and one will miss the opportunity for eternal blissful life. So we're not going through all these quotes over here. These are some very beautiful quotes of Srila Prabhupada, emphasizing the importance of reading his books. Okay, so we will come to this part. What is the Srimad Bhagavatam?
आप संडे सर्विस उसमें भी आती हो ना?
This is again a quote from the Madhya Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Somebody can read this, please.
The meaning of the Vedanta Sutra is present in Srimad Bhagavatam. The full purport of the Mahabharata is also there. The commentary of the Brahma Gayatri is also there and fully expanded with all Vedic knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supreme Purana and it was compiled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his incarnation as Vyasadeva. There are 12 cantos, 335 chapters and 18,000 verses. Purport. It's a quotation from Garud Puran, Madhya 25.144.
So therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author. The Vedanta Sutra has been given by Vyasadeva, and Vyasadeva himself has given the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, that is Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is said to be the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And it has 12 cantos, 335 chapters, and 18,000 verses. Okay, again we are. Okay, this is from the Matsya Puran. Prabhupada quotes this in his commentary. Somebody read this, please.
The characteristics of Srimad Bhagavatam are given in the Matsya Puran.
A little louder, please. We can't hear you.
The characteristics of Srimad Bhagavatam are given in Matsya Puran 53:20-22. That which explains the topmost principles of religion, basing it on the Gayatri, and which has the incident of the killing of Vritasura, is to be known as Srimad Bhagavatam. This Puran has 18,000 verses. Whoever makes a copy of the Srimad Bhagavatam and placing it on a golden lion throne, donates it on the full moon day in the month of Bhadra, August, September, will attain the supreme.
Okay, so again here the Matsya Puran, which is said to be one of the oldest Puranas, is also glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically mentioning how the Bhagavatam considers this incident of the killing of Vritrasur. So that's an important section of the Bhagavatam. And here also is mentioning that it has 18,000 verses, and whoever donates the Srimad Bhagavatam on the Bhadra Purnima, so therefore ISKCON has taken up this Bhadra Purnima Srimad Bhagavatam set distribution. Okay, so here we will be seeing these verses also after some time. But here in the Madhili of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, again it says, Sarva Vede Itihasanam Saram Saram Samudritam. The essence of all the Vedic literature and all the histories has been collected in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Purport Srimad Bhagavatam was collected by the incarnation of God, Vyasdev, and it was later taught to Sant Shukadeva Goswami. There's a quotation from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so it is the essence of all the Vedas and the Itihasas. Saram, Saram, the essence of the essence. That is the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then this is again a quotation from the Srimad Bhagavatam 12th Canto. Sarva Vedanta Saram hi Srimad Bhagavatam ishyate tadrasamritam tasya nanyatra syadrati kvachit. Srimad Bhagavatam is accepted as the essence of all Vedic literature and Vedanta philosophy. Whoever tastes the transcendental mellow of Srimad Bhagavatam is never attracted to any other literature. So again, here it is mentioned, Sarva Vedanta Saram. So it is the Saram, the essence of all the Vedic literatures. And Tad Rasamrita Triptasya. So by tasting the Srimad Bhagavatam, the nectar of the Srimad Bhagavatam, one becomes fully satisfied, Triptasya. And then na anyatra syad rati kvachit. Then he does not have rati, he does not have attraction to any other literature. Okay, so these are some important verses by Sanatana Goswami glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Leela Stava. So let's recite. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vedika Satphala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarva Lokeka Drikprada, Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidvanto Ditaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita. Somebody read the translation, please.
O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all the Vedic scriptures, O most prominent transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O you who are enriched with the jewels of all spiritual philosophical conclusions, O you who grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O life breath of the Vaishnava devotees, O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of the Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna, who has returned among us.
So we can see Sanatana Goswami is addressing Srimad Bhagavatam as a person, because the Srimad Bhagavatam is actually not different from the Supreme Lord. So here also he's mentioning that how the Srimad Bhagavatam is the nectar, like in the previous verses also we saw, the Saram, the nectar churned from the ocean of all the Vedic scriptures. And what is the result of studying the Srimad Bhagavatam? One can get spiritual vision. So you grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world. And so therefore he says that is the life breath of the Vaishnava devotees. Okay, next verse. Paramananda Patnaya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvanda Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. By reading you, one attains transcendental bliss. For your syllables rain pure love of God upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone, for you are an incarnation of Lord Krishna. Okay, so Paramananda Patnaya. So by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, one attains supreme transcendental bliss. And why? Prema Varshi Aksharaya. So every akshar, every syllable, every word rains pure prema, love of God. And so therefore he says, Sarvanda Sarva Sevyaya, everyone should serve the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we serve Srimad Bhagavatam by reading and studying the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he says, Sri Krishnaya Namostute. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna himself. Then he says, Mad Ekabandho Mad Sangin Mad Guru Mad Mahadhana Mad Nistaraka Mad Bhagya Madananda Namostute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. Okay, so in this way, he's addressing Srimad Bhagavatam as Mad Ekabandho, only friends, Mad Sangin, only companion, Mad Guru. So in this way, he is treating Srimad Bhagavatam as a very close companion and as a teacher who can actually give the supreme wealth of love of God. Next, asadu sadhu tadayan atini chochataraka anamuncha kadachin mam premna ridkantayosvura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O giver of saintliness to the unsaintly, O uplifter of the very fallen, please do not ever leave me. Please become manifested upon my heart and my throat, accompanied by pure love of Krishna. Okay, so by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, asadu sadhuta dayan. So somebody who is asadu, who is not saintly, doesn't have a saintly character, can become saintly by studying the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so he says, Ana muncha kadachin mam, please do not ever leave me. Please do not leave me. Premna rit kantayo sphura, please become manifested upon my heart and throat, accompanied by pure love of Krishna. And the Bhagavatam itself says, Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam, is the Srimad Bhagavatam is a literary incarnation of God. Okay, so again in the Brahma Vaibhava Purana, it is said of all the Puranas, I'm the best in the supreme Srimad Bhagavad Purana. Okay. So here in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, this is from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, where he says that Srimad Bhagavatam speaks of the highest goal of life, devotional service, and divine love of Krishna. According to all the Vedas, Srimad Bhagavatam is the very form of divine love. The four Vedas are like yogurts, but Srimad Bhagavatam is like butter. The churner of this butter is Shukdev Goswami, and the eater of this butter is Parikshit Maharaj. So nice analogy here. The Vedas have been compared to yogurt, and Srimad Bhagavatam is like the butter. Shukdev Goswami has churned it, and Parikshit Maharaj is relishing it. Okay. Okay, so now here in the Padma Purana, it is explained that how the various cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam are compared to the various aspects of the transcendental body of the Lord. Padau yadiyo pratama dvitiyo tritiya turyo kadito yaduru navishtata panchama eva shashto bhujantaram doryugalam yathanyo mukharavindam dashamam prafullam ekadasho yasya lalatapatakam Shiropi yadvadasha eva bati tamadidevam kanuna nidhanam tamalavannam suhitavataram aparasamsara samudra setum vajmeha bhagavata swarupam. So, okay, somebody can read this.
I meditate on the most merciful Sri Krishna, whose bodily hue is like a tamal tree. He has appeared for everyone's benefit in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is like a bridge for crossing the unending ocean of birth and death. The first and second cantos are his lotus feet. The third and fourth cantos are his two thighs. The fifth canto is his navel, waist. The seventh and eighth are his mighty shoulders. The ninth canto is his throat, neck. The 10th canto is his face, which is like a fully bloomed lotus flower. The 11th canto is his forehead. The 12th canto is his head.
Right. So in this way, the Bhagavatam has been compared to the various aspects of the transcendental body of the Supreme Lord. And by studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, the result will be that it acts as a setu, a bridge to cross over the samsara sagar, the unending ocean of birth and death. And so therefore, Srila Prabhupada says in the Narada Bhakti Sutra, please read.
The authorized approach to the Bhagavatam is to first carefully read the first 9 cantos, which establish the greatness of the Supreme Lord, his universal form, his material and spiritual energies, his creation of the cosmos, his incarnations, and so on.
Continue.
Reading the first 2 cantos is like contemplating on the lotus feet of the Lord, and as one gradually progresses, one looks upon the Lord's various bodily limbs until finally one sees his smiling face in the 10th canto's account of his pastimes with the gopis. Narad Bhakti Sutra.
So just like even while having darshan of the deity form of the Lord, one first of all has darshan of the lotus feet and then gradually goes upwards. And so similarly, Srila Prabhupada always wanted us to sequentially study the Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning from the first canto, and first of all understand the greatness of the Lord, understand his Aishwarya Gyan in the first 9 cantos, and then one will be qualified to actually understand the intimate pastimes of the Lord in the 10th canto. And so the systematic studying of the Srimad Bhagavatam is very important, and that's something which Srila Prabhupada always wanted. Now coming to the subjects in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So these are the 10 subject matters which are told by Shrita Goswami in the 2nd canto, 10th chapter, verse 1. Sarga, Visarga, Sthanam, Poshna, Uti, Manvantara, Ishanukata, Nirodha, Mukti, and Ashraya. So these 10 characters are found in a Mahapuran, but a Puran has only 5 characteristics. Sargascha, Pratisarga, Cha, Vamsha, Manvantarani, Cha, Vamsanu, Charitam, Chapi, Puranam, Panchalakshana. So this is the difference between a Puran and a Mahapuran. Mahapuran has these 10 characteristics. An ordinary Puran has only 5. The 5 are Sarga or creation, Pratisarga or dissolution, Vamsha, the genealogies of kings or sages, Manvantaras, a duration of a reign of Manu, Vamsanu Charita, the description of various sages, kings, and incarnations. These 5 include the 10 characteristics of a Mahapuran, but in a Puran, more stress is laid on these 5 topics, and this gives the distinction between a Puran and a Mahapuran. So all the 10 are also covered in an ordinary Puran, but essentially these 5 topics are covered. And Jiva Goswami, he gives this breakdown of the topics covered in each canto. So the 2nd and 3rd cantos are especially talking about Sarga, then 2nd, 3rd, 4th, Visarga, and so on and so forth. So, but of course, he also says that ultimately all the topics are covered in all the cantos, though some topics are emphasized in some cantos, but he also says that ultimately all the topics are covered in all the 10 cantos, all the 12 cantos. The ultimate purpose of the Srimad Bhagavatam is to explain the 10th item, Ashraya, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is the famous verse which Srila Prabhupada also quotes right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam. Krishna swadhama pagate dharma jnana divisaha kalau nashta drishamesha puranarko dunoditaha. This Bhagavad Puran is as brilliant as the sun and has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode. Accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc., persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance, the age of Kali shall get light from this Puran. So the Bhagavad Puran is as good as the Supreme Lord Krishna himself. Yes, now in the preface, this is an important statement. Prabhupada writes in the preface, there is a need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship, and prosperity with a common cause. Srimad Bhagavatam will fill this need, for it is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that the Srimad Bhagavatam will establish real peace and friendship and unity all over the human society. And it is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. So as we will study the Srimad Bhagavatam, we will see that the Bhagavatam is not only just philosophy, but there is also a culture that goes along with the philosophy. So what do you think is the importance of culture along with philosophy? Culture obviously means behavioral patterns, etiquettes, sadachar, all this comes within culture. So what do you think is the importance of culture going hand in hand with philosophy? Any thoughts?
Prabhuji, may I?
Go ahead.
So, culture is in effect the embodiment of philosophy in day-to-day life.
What do you mean by that?
So, living the tenets of philosophy, embodying them in your day-to-day behavior is what basically formulates or forms our culture.
Okay, good point. Somebody else would like to add? What is
The
the
practical approach. The practical approach of philosophy.
okay practical approach of the philosophy? So how is it important?
Hare Krishna. It's
Culture
like
is
a
very
maybe,
important.
maybe because Prabhuji it tells us how we should actually live as well.
Okay, fine. Yes, Ankur, bro, go ahead.
it's like a backbone of the philosophy. Yes,
Why do you say it's a backbone?
because without culture, one cannot proceed, or one cannot understand the real philosophy.
Okay, fine. Okay, Ganga Shakti Maharaj.
Prabhuji, culture probably helps us to convert the theory that we know in terms of philosophy into application, how we actually live that.
Okay, yes, so all these points are correct. So yes, without the culture, there cannot be a conducive environment to understand the philosophy. Because if there is no culture, then there will not be appropriate behaviors, appropriate relationships amongst devotees and the other people. And so without that culture, there cannot be a proper understanding of the philosophy. Because people will think that, well, these people talk philosophy, but there doesn't seem to be any transformation in the character, which is the ultimate goal of the study of the philosophy. Prabhupada has written in the purport to the last verse of the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he writes this beautiful statement: the study of the Vedas is not simply for the recreation of armchair speculators, but for the formation of character. So the purpose of studying the philosophy is the formation of character. There's another quote of Srila Prabhupada where Srila Prabhupada says, the Brahmanas are not interested in accumulating wealth and building big houses, but they're simply interested in building their character. So the purpose of understanding the philosophy is so that one brings about a transformation in the value systems, one brings about a transformation in character. If that is not taking place, then simply dry study of the philosophy is going to be useless. And so therefore, our goal for studying the scriptures must be very clear. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when he went to Mathura, we're not going to the end of pastime, but he speaks this important verse, Dharma sthapana hetur sadhura vyavahar. The principles of religion are established by the behavior of a sadhu, a saintly person. And so therefore, ultimately what is important is that we bring about a change in our character. We bring about divine qualities. So therefore, that's what the culture is about. And so therefore, when there is that culture, then the understanding of the philosophy becomes more easy, because then people see that here we can see that the philosophy is actually being put into practice. So therefore, Prabhupada's writing, there's a culture, it's a cultural presentation. And throughout the Bhagavatam, we will see this culture, the culture of Vaishnava behavior that is there along with the philosophy. So therefore, the study of the Bhakti Vaibhava course should not be simply to get some philosophy and at the ultimate end get a certificate. But then the basic purpose should be to imbibe that philosophy within our own lives so that there's a transformation of character. That has to be the ultimate goal. Okay, so this is from teachings of Queen Kunti. Whatever knowledge exists in the world is present in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It includes literature, poetry, astronomy, philosophy, religion, and love of goddess. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. If one simply reads the Srimad Bhagavatam, he gains the topmost education. For if one studies the Srimad Bhagavatam, he'll be very well versed in every subject matter. Okay, please read this quote from Srila Prabhupada.
If you study Srimad Bhagavatam perfectly, then all your education is complete. You don't require any other book to read. You get from Srimad Bhagavatam all material and spiritual knowledge. And at the end, Krishna. This is the prophet.
Yes, so Srimad Bhagavatam contains all knowledge. Prabhupada says all material and spiritual knowledge. Material means in connection to the body. So that type of knowledge is also there. And at the end, one will achieve Krishna by studying Srimad Bhagavatam. So the education is complete. Srila Prabhupada very much wanted that in our Gurukuls also, the main subject matter of study should be the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's no need of reading any other book. The perfection of life is to understand God. So by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Sadhya immediately Ridhya Avarudyate Ishvaraha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by simply reading Bhagavatam, he's already there, but immediately he is realized. That is perfection of life. Jai, Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so now we are changing the PPT. So in the introduction, we can see practically the entire introduction is a short sketch of the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the preacher of Srimad Bhagavatam. And so Srila Prabhupada has given almost a synopsis of the entire life history and teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, quite elaborate. You can see going through several pages. So why he has done this? Any thoughts? Why in the introduction Srila Prabhupada has put the life and teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
Hare Krishna.
Okay, go ahead.
I think because Bhagavatam could be understood by under the shelter of Bhagavata Bhakt.
Okay, the Bhagavatam can be answered on the shelter of a Bhagavat. Okay, that's right. Bhagavat Podiya, Bhagavat Sthane. Okay, fine. Rukmini Mother?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Actually, Srimad Bhagavatam is the commentary on Vedanta Sutra. And
Yes.
Vedanta Sutra is explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya.
Okay. Okay, fine. Somebody else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So can we say that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he lived Bhagavatam? He was a living
Yes,
Bhagavatam.
definitely. He lived the Bhagavatam. He was person Bhagavat. That's correct.
And one more thought, Prabhuji, that we can understand Krishna by knowing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only. And Bhagavatam is all about Krishna. So by knowing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only, by his mercy, we will be able to stand the Bhagavatam, means Krishna, able to stand Krishna.
Okay, that's fine, correct. So Srila Prabhupada himself explains why he has put this entire life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So just before that heading, life and a short sketch of the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So somebody can read those paragraphs. In the modern age, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
In the modern age, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached the Srimad Bhagavatam by practical demonstration. It is easier to penetrate into the topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam through the medium of Sri Chaitanya's causeless mercy. Therefore, a short sketch of his life and precepts is inserted herein to help the reader understand the real merit of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is imperative that one learn the Srimad Bhagavatam from the person Bhagavatam. The person Bhagavatam is one whose very life is Srimad Bhagavatam in practice. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the absolute personality of Godhead, he is both Bhagwan and Bhagavatam in person and in sound. Therefore, his process of approaching the Srimad Bhagavatam is practical for all people of the world. It was his wish that the Srimad Bhagavatam be preached in every nook and corner of the world by those who happen to take their birth in India. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the science of Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, of whom we have preliminary information from the text of the Bhagavad Gita. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that anyone, regardless of what he is, who is well versed in the science of Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, can become an authorized preacher or preceptor in the science of Krishna. There is a need for the science of Krishna in human society for the good of all suffering humanity of the world. And we simply request the leaders of all nations to pick up the science of Krishna for their own good, for the good of society, and for the good of all the world's people.
Yes. So that's the purpose, as Prabhupada is writing, that in order to understand the topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam, one requires the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And and also, as somebody already said it, that one must learn the Srimad Bhagavatam from a person Bhagavat. And so therefore the best person Bhagavat is Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. As Prabhupada writes, he's both Bhagwan and Bhagavatam in person and in sound. Therefore, his process of approaching the Srimad Bhagavatam is practical for all people of the world. And it was his wish that the Srimad Bhagavatam be preached in every nook and corner of the world for those who happen to take their birth in India. So that's the reason why Srila Prabhupada is putting this entire life sketch and teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay. So now we will go to chapter 1. Just a second. Okay, let's begin the first verse anyways. Okay. Okay, let's begin with this quote of Srila Prabhupada. Somebody read this. Those who have not read so far can please read. Otherwise, the same people are reading every time. So
Hare Krishna. This temple, these ISKCON centers are open just to give everyone the chance of hearing about Krishna so that his dirty heart may be cleansed. This is the purpose. We have no other purpose. We are not opening these centers for some material benefit. No, we want to give to the whole world the spiritual enlightenment without which they are suffering. And this human form of body is especially meant for this purpose, to understand our spiritual position.
Yes, so Prabhupada wanted our ISKCON centers to distribute this spiritual knowledge for the benefit of the entire world and the suffering humanity. So this is the overview of the first chapter. Verses 1 to 3 are a prelude to the Srimad Bhagavatam. So basically there is a description of the subject of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the glories and the goal of the Bhagavatam in the first 3 verses. And verses 4 to 8 are setting the scene, sages of Naimisharya's 1,000-year sacrifice, and also enumerated Sutta Goswami's qualifications and inquiries. And verses 9 to 23 are essentially the 6 questions of the sages. So coming to the first verse, let's recite. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadyasya yato anvayaditaratascharteshu abhignaswarat Tene brahmarida adikavaye muyanti yatsurayah Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha Dhamna svena sada nirasta kubhagam satyam param dhimahi. Okay, somebody read the translation.
O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge onto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the greatest sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire, or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the 3 modes of nature, appear factual although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Yes. So okay, somebody else can read the first 2 paragraphs of Srila Prabhupada's purport.
Obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Vasudeva directly indicate Lord Sri Krishna, who is the divine son of Vasudeva and Devaki. This fact will be more explicitly explained in the text of this work. Sri Vyasadeva asserts herein that Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and all others are his direct or indirect plenary portions or portions of the portion. Srila Jiva Goswami has even more explicitly explained the subject matter in his Krishna Sandarbha, and Brahma, the original living being, has explained the subject of Sri Krishna substantially in his treatise named Brahma Samhita. In the Samaveda Upanishad, it is also stated that Lord Sri Krishna is the divine son of Devaki. Therefore, in this prayer, the first proposition holds that Lord Sri Krishna is the primeval Lord, and if any transcendental nomenclature is to be understood as belonging to the absolute personality of Godhead, it must be the name indicated by the word Krishna, which means the all attractive. In Bhagavad Gita, in many places, the Lord asserts himself to be the original personality of Godhead, and this is confirmed by Arjuna and also by great sages like Narada, Vyas, and many others. In the Padma Puran, it is also stated that out of the innumerable names of the Lord, the name of Krishna is the principal one. Vasudeva indicates the plenary portion of the personality of Godhead, and all the different forms of the Lord being identical with Vasudev and are indicated in the text. The name Vasudev particularly indicates the divine son of Vasudev and Devki. Shri Krishna is always meditated upon the Paramhansas, who are the perfected ones among those in the renounced order of life. Vasudev, or Lord Shri Krishna, is the cause of all causes. Everything that exists emanates from the Lord. How this is explained in later chapters of this work. This work is described by Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya as the spotless Puran because it contains the transcendental narration of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. The history of the Srimad Bhagavatam is also very glorious. It was compiled by Sri Vyasadeva after he had attained maturity in transcendental knowledge. He wrote this under the instruction of Sri Narad Ji, his spiritual master. Vyasadeva compiled all Vedic literatures containing the 4 divisions of the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutra, or the Brahma Sutra, the Puranas, the Mahabharata, and so on. But nevertheless, he was not satisfied. His dissatisfaction was observed by his spiritual master, and thus Narad advised him to write on the transcendental activities of Lord Shri Krishna. These transcendental activities are described specifically in the 10th canto of this work, but in order to reach to the very substance, one must proceed gradually by developing knowledge of the categories.
So here we find Vyasadeva is beginning with offering obeisances to the Supreme Absolute Truth, Vasudeva. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, therefore, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that Vyasadeva is very clearly indicating who is the Supreme Absolute Truth. He is Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. So there is no doubt about the fact that who is the Supreme Absolute Truth. And therefore, he is first of all offering his obeisances, his respects to the Supreme Absolute Truth. Okay, so now we find in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking about this verse in his teachings to Sanatana Goswami. When Sanatana Goswami when Rupa Goswami is speaking about the Supreme Lord and his various incarnations in his teachings to Sanatana Goswami, he is describing this verse and thereby describing how one can recognize the various characteristics of an incarnation of the Lord. And so therefore, in this verse, he says, Bhagavata Arambe Vyasa Mangala Charane Parameshwara Nirupila Eidui Lakshane. In the auspicious invocation at the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva has described the Supreme Personality of Godhead by these symptoms. Then he talks about what is the purpose of the Mangalacharan. So this is a general statement as to what is the purpose of the Mangalacharan. Say Mangalacharan hoya Trivida Prakash Vastu Nirdesha Ashirvad Namaskar. So 3 purposes of any Mangalacharan. So these first 3 verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam indicate the Mangalacharan. So the purposes of the Mangalacharan are Vastu Nirdesh, Ashirvad, and Namaskar. The invocation involves 3 processes: defining the objective, offering benedictions, and offering obeisances. These are the 3 purposes of the Mangalacharan. So to understand what is the objective or what is the goal, what is the purpose of the book, and to offer Ashirvad and also to offer obeisances. This is a general purpose of any Mangalacharan before the beginning of any book. Now, using this verse, he establishes the characteristics of the Supreme Absolute Truth. And he says that there are Swarup Lakshan and Tatastha Lakshan. Akriti Prakriti Swarupa Swarupa Lakshana Karyadvara Jnana E Tatastha Lakshana. Bodily features, nature, and form are the personal characteristics. Knowledge of his activities provides the marginal characteristics. The Swarup Lakshan are these 3: Akriti, Prakriti, and Swarupa. So Akriti means the bodily features, Prakriti means the nature, and Swarupa means the form. So these all come under Swarup Lakshan. Akriti, Prakriti, and Swarupa. And the Tatastha Lakshan, or the secondary or the marginal characteristics, are Karya, Dwara, Gyan. That means the activities. So the activities constitute the Tatastha Lakshan, or the marginal characteristics. So now Prabhupada is commenting on this verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So somebody read this, please.
This verse, quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1, links the Srimad Bhagavatam with the Vedanta Sutra with the verse Janmadi Asayata. It is stated that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, is the absolute truth beyond the material creation. This has been accepted by all acharyas. Even Shankaracharya, the most elevated impersonalist, says in the beginning of his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, Narayana Paro Avyaktat. When this material creation is not yet manifested from the Mahatattva, it is called Avyakta. And when it is demonstrated from that total energy, it is called Vyakta. Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is beyond this Vyakta Avyakta, manifested and unmanifested material nature. This is the chief qualification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he assumes a particular incarnation.
Okay, so the Supreme Lord, he is never affected by the material creation. So he is totally beyond all this Vyakta and Avyakta, manifest and unmanifested material creation. So he is always on the transcendental platform. Continue, please.
Since Krishna is beyond the cosmic creation, he is in the exalted position of being able to remember everything in the past. Everything within the cosmic creation has a material body, but Krishna, beyond the material cosmic creation, always has a spiritual body. He imparted Vedic knowledge into the heart of Brahma. Although Brahma is the most important and exalted personality within this universe, he could not remember what he did in his past life. Krishna had to remind him through the heart. When Lord Brahma was thus inspired, he was able to create the entire universe. Remembering everything about the past and inspiring Lord Brahma to create are vivid examples of the characteristics called Swarup Lakshan and Tatastha Lakshan.
Okay, so here Srila Prabhupada is summarizing the verse. So now coming to the Swarup Lakshan and Tatastha Lakshan of this verse. Eish loke param shabde Krishna nirupana satyam shabde kahetara Swarupa Lakshana. So in this invocation from Srimad Bhagavatam, the word param, satyam param, indicates Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the word satyam indicates his personal characteristics. So in this verse, which are the Swarup Lakshan? Satyam param. These two words indicate his personal characteristics. So param obviously indicates that how he is transcendental, and satyam indicates that how he is the absolute truth. So these are his personal characteristics. So as we said, as Mahaprabhu has said, that the Swarup Lakshan indicates Prakriti, Akriti, and Swarupa. So his nature. So the word param indicates his nature. His nature is not material, it is spiritual. And so therefore, when Krishna comes into this world also, he maintains the spiritual nature. Just like in Bhagavad Gita 4.6, Krishna himself says, Ajo apisan avyatma bhutanam ishwaropisan prakritim swamadhishtaya sambhavami atmamaya. So there Krishna says that he comes into this world, even though he's unborn, he comes into this world by his internal energy. And so therefore, this Satyam Param, these two words indicate his Swarup Lakshan, the personal characteristics. And then, Vishwa Shrishti Adi Kela Veda Brahma Ke Padaila Artha Abhigyata Swarupa Shakti Maya Dura Kaila. In the same manner, it is stated that the Lord is the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of the cosmic manifestation, and that he enabled Lord Brahma to create the universe by infusing him with knowledge of the Vedas. It is also stated that the Lord has full knowledge, directly and indirectly, that he knows past, present, and future, and that his personal energy is separate from Maya, the illusory energy. So these are all his activities that he does. So as the verse says, Janma Adi indicates creation, maintenance, annihilation. And Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye, he gives the knowledge of the Vedas first to Brahma. So all these are his various activities. And so these activities constitute the Tatastha Lakshana. Ei Sabakaryatara Tatastha Lakshana, Anya Avatara Aiche Jane Munigana. All these activities are his marginal characteristics. Great saintly persons understand the incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the indications of the two characteristics known as Swarup and Tatastha. All the incarnations of Krishna should be understood in this way. Okay, so the personal characteristics are Satyam Param, that is the Swarup Lakshan, and the Tatastha Lakshan are his various activities that have been indicated in this verse by Janma Adisyata and Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. So how he is the creator, maintainer, destroyer of the material universes, and he gives knowledge to Brahma from within the heart. So these are the activities that have been described in this verse, and they constitute the Tatastha Lakshana. Any questions so far? Any clarifications?
Hare Krishna ji.
Yes, Amal Charan.
Yeah, there's an analogy like Chaitanya Charitamrita is like a PhD and Srimad Bhagavatam is postgrad. So I'm not trying to understand why we are quoting or why we are taking reference of Chaitanya Charitamrita to understand first shloka of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Why? Because Mahaprabhu has explained. We just now saw right in the introduction, Prabhupada is giving the whole life sketch of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he wants us to understand the Bhagavatam through the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're trying to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam through the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu has beautifully explained this verse. So we're taking that. See, it's not that we cannot use references from the Srimad Bhagavatam for studying either Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because for us, especially in Kali Yuga, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the incarnation for Kali Yuga. And so therefore, trying to study Srimad Bhagavatam through the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is perfect. What could be said as a PhD level study of the Chaitanya Charitamrita is more intimate pastimes or more exalted teachings, which we find in certain sections of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But there are certain sections of the Chaitanya Charitamrita which are applicable for even the sadhakas, and anybody can read and relish. In fact, Srila Prabhupada, that's why he stopped the translation of Srimad Bhagavatam in between in 1974 to give us the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because as devotees of Gaudiya Vaishnavism and as devotees of ISKCON, it's very important for us to understand the life and teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji,
Yes.
we just read in the purport that Srila Vyasadeva composed all the Puranas and he wasn't satisfied. And then he was instructed by Narad Muni to compose Srimad Bhagavatam. And we see in almost all the Puranas, there is reference of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I want to ask if these Puranas were composed earlier and then Srimad Bhagavatam was composed.
No,
how?
that of course, these points will be clarified in the further chapters when we study the 4th and the 5th chapters. But Vyasadeva compiled all the Puranas, including the Srimad Bhagavatam, including the Bhagavad Puran. It's only that after he received instructions from Narad Muni, then Vyasadeva edited the Bhagavad Puran. He added some things and expanded on some things. That's what he did after getting instructions from Narad Muni. But otherwise, he compiled all the Puranas, including the Bhagavad Puran, at the same time. All right? Okay, fine. So now I'll proceed ahead. So now, the acharyas are quoting this verse to establish the supremacy of Vasudeva, because the verse is starting with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this verse from the 11th canto is being quoted, 11:1632. Sadvatam Navamurti Nam Adi Murtir Aham Para My devotees worship me in 9 different forms, among which I'm the original and primary Vasudev. So therefore, here also, Vyasadeva is offering his obeisances to Vasudev. Okay, this is from Srila Prabhupada's lecture, I suppose. Okay, read this.
So
So
Vyasadeva
Vyasadeva,
is offering his obeisances to Satyam Param, the absolute supreme truth, not to the relative truth. Everyone has to offer obeisances to somebody in our practical life at least. We have to offer obeisances to the police constable. When you go on the street, as soon as they say stop, so we have to obey. So how you can avoid obeying? They are saying that we don't believe in God. God is dead. I am God. But why you are offering obeisances even to the small constable? That means you have to offer your obeisances to somebody. That is your position.
Yeah, so Srila Prabhupada is making a nice point here, that how everyone has to surrender to somebody, everyone has to offer obeisances to somebody. So even though an atheist may say that, oh, I don't surrender to anyone, he will have to surrender. As Srila Prabhupada says, throughout his life, a person may say, no, I don't surrender to anyone, but at the time of death, he will have to surrender to the Supreme Lord in the form of death. But even before that, Prabhupada is saying that even to a police constable, one has to obey the police constable. That means he's surrendering to the police constable. So one cannot be without surrendering. One cannot be without obeying someone. So therefore, it is best to offer obeisances and surrender to the Supreme Lord. Then human life can be successful. Okay, another quote from Srila Prabhupada, please read.
Vyasadeva is explaining what is Krishna. First of all, let us understand what is Krishna. Then we enter into the other information of Krishna. So our Krishna consciousness movement is against all this rascaldom. We present, here is God, take his name, take his address also. That is also, it is so perfect. They are searching after God. We are giving the name, address, activity, everything, quality, all.
Yes, so yes, the Bhagavatam is describing everything about God, his name, address, everything is being described. So that's what the Bhagavatam is very clearly establishing right in the beginning. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, read this, please. Somebody else who has not read? Who has not read? So,
Janmadi Yata SB 1.1.1, that is the first Vedanta Sutra. The Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra philosophy was expounded by Vyasadeva Mahamuni, and thinking that in future so many fools and rascals will misuse the Vedanta Sutra as so-called Vedantists and send all people to hell. Therefore, he personally wrote this commentary on Vedanta Sutra, the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhashyam Brahma Sutranam Vedarthe Paribramhita. This is Bhashya. Bhashya means commentary. Therefore, he begins from the first aphorism of Vedanta Sutra, Janmadi Asya Yata.
Right. So the first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra, that is Janmadi Asya Yata, and that's how the Srimad Bhagavatam is also beginning. And that shows that how the Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which was given by Vyasadeva. So therefore, as Prabhupada is explaining, that Vyasadeva, he himself gave the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra so that people don't misuse and misinterpret the Vedanta Sutra. Therefore, he personally wrote this commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, that is the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, fine. So now we'll proceed ahead. Now, the next point that the verse is saying is Janmadyasya Yata. So the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva, is the cause for Janma Adi. Janma Adi means for creation, maintenance, and destruction. Asya means of these manifested universes, that is the material universes. So these are the activities of the Supreme Lord. Of course, the Lord does not do these activities directly. He does it mostly through his Purusha avatars, that is the Kanodaksha Vishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and Shirodaksha Vishnu. Through these various incarnations, he performs these activities of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. So, now, so he says, Janmadhyasya yata anvayad itaratascha cha arteshu abhignya swarat. So there are two words here, anvayad and itarata. Anvayad means directly, itarata means indirectly. So the Supreme Lord, he is responsible for creation, maintenance, and destruction of all these manifested universes. And he does all this, or he knows all this directly as well as indirectly. Now, Srila Prabhupada is explaining this point of directly and indirectly further down the purport. So if you go further down the purport, the paragraph begins with the chief engineer of a complicated construction. Did you find that? If somebody has found it, you can read that paragraph.
The chief engineer of a complicated construction does not personally take part in the construction, but he knows every nook and corner because everything is done under his direction. He knows everything about the construction, both directly and indirectly. Similarly, the personality of Godhead, who is the supreme engineer of this cosmic creation, knows every nook and corner, although affairs are being carried out by demigods. Beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, no one is independent in the material creation. The hand of the Lord is seen everywhere. All material elements as well as spiritual sparks emanate from him only. And whatever is created, all this material world is but the interaction of two energies, the material and the spiritual, which emanate from the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. A chemist can manufacture water in the chemical laboratory by mixing hydrogen and oxygen. But in reality, the living entity works in the laboratory under the direction of the Supreme Lord. And the materials with which he works are also supplied by the independent. He is compared to a mine of gold, and the cosmic creations in so many different forms are compared to objects made from gold, such as gold ring, necklace, and so on. The gold ring and the gold necklace are qualitatively one with the gold in mine, but quantitatively the gold in the mine is different. Therefore, the absolute truth is simultaneously one and different. Nothing is absolutely equal with the absolute truth, but at the same time, nothing is independent of the absolute truth.
Read one more paragraph.
Conditioned souls, beginning from Brahma, who engineer the entire universe down to the insignificant ant, are all creating, but none of them are independent of the Supreme Lord. The materialist wrongly thinks that there is no creator other than his own self. This is called Maya or illusion. Because of his poor fund of knowledge, the materialist cannot see beyond the purview of his imperfect senses, and thus he thinks that matter automatically takes its own shape without the aid of a superior intelligence. This is refused in the shloka by Srila Vyasadeva. Since the complete whole or the absolute truth is a source of everything, nothing can be independent of the body of the absolute truth. Whatever happens to the body quickly becomes known to the embodied. Similarly, the creation is the body of the absolute whole. Therefore, the absolute knows everything directly and indirectly that happens in the creation.
Yes, so Srila Prabhupada is beautifully explaining these points regarding this Anvayad and Itaratha, directly and indirectly. So for us to understand, Srila Prabhupada uses contemporary words like engineer. So Prabhupada is saying the chief engineer. So that engineers of the modern world can understand what Krishna is doing. And so both directly and indirectly. So just like the engineer, so how is he directly involved? What is the direct involvement of the engineer and what is the indirect involvement of the engineer? I'm sure there are some engineers in this audience here. So any engineers here in the audience?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yes,
I am a
Rai
mechanical
Rama.
engineer.
So
Yes,
what is
I
the
am a
directly?
mechanical engineer. Directly in construction point of view, if there is a construction team which directly deal with implement the designing part, and indirectly I am also doing the designing part. Indirectly, I am doing the concept designing, and what happened is during the construction it implement the design.
Okay, fine. So directly you're mostly involved in planning, correct?
Yes, execution of planning, I can say.
Okay, planning, execution of planning, and the actual construction is done by somebody else. So that is indirectly, but still you know what they're doing, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yes, so exactly. So Krishna also does exactly the same thing. So Krishna also gives the blueprint. He does the planning. That is called as the primary creation, sarga. And then the visarga, the secondary creation, is done by the demigods, beginning from Brahma and so many other demigods that we'll study in details in the second and the third cantos. But the primary creation is done by Krishna. That's his direct involvement in the creation. And then there are the Purusha avatars and the demigods who are all also involved in the creation. So that is how Krishna is involved in the directly and indirectly. But in this case, even though the Purusha avatars and the demigods, they are doing the hands-on job, as you can say, but still Krishna is in full control. Krishna is in full control. He knows everything what they're doing. Sometimes in this world, sometimes the construction workers may do some mistakes which the engineer may not know. But in the case of Krishna, it never happens. So whatever is happening is perfect, perfectly under the control of Krishna. And the other important point Srila Prabhupada is making here is that whatever happens to the body quickly becomes known to the embodied. Similarly, the creation is the body of the absolute whole. Again, this point will become more clear in the later chapters when we study how the entire universe is actually the body of the Supreme Lord as the Vishwarup. Of course, you have studied Vishwarup in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita also. But then the Vishwarup or the Virat Rup is basically the manifestation of Krishna throughout the universe. So therefore, the entire universe can also be called as a body of the Supreme Lord. It is his Virat Rup. And so therefore, because the entire universe is the body of the Supreme Lord, anything which happens to the body must obviously be known to the embodied. Just like I have my body, whatever happens to this body, even if there's a small thorn pricking, I come to know because it is my body, correct? So similarly, the entire universe is the body of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, he knows everything about this universe, being his body. So therefore, he knows everything directly, indirectly, he knows everything about this entire universe. So that is the meaning of Anvayat Itarataha. And then Prabhupada is also refuting the atheistic theories, like the materialist wrongly thinks that there's no creator other than his own self. Because of his poor fund of knowledge, the materialist cannot see beyond the purview of his imperfect senses, and thus he thinks that matter automatically takes its own shape without the aid of a superior intelligence. So many atheistic theories are there, how creation has taken place. So I'm sure you must have heard so many atheistic theories, like the Big Bang theory, chance theory, and so on. So how will you refute these theories? If somebody asks you, how will you prove? Here Krishna is saying, yes, Janma Dyasya Yatha, I am the creator, maintainer, and destroyer. Here Krishna is saying directly. But if somebody argues that everything came from Big Bang, some explosion, by chance, so people have all these different theories. How will you prove to them by logic and reasoning?
Prabhuji, for anything to be created, there needs to be a creator. And so that
how will you prove it?
So like you were taking the example of a building, like if the building has to come into shape, there has to be somebody who creates that building. So similarly, when this cosmic manifestation has been created, so there has to be some creator behind it.
Correct. Yes. And how will you refute the Big Bang theory and the chance theory? Yes, somebody else?
By blasting a building, by a blast, we cannot create anything.
Yes.
It's used for destruction.
Correct. Yes, that's what Srila Prabhupada would say. So where do you hear of an explosion taking place and some creation taking place? Right? So an explosion takes place, there's only destruction, not creation. So therefore, all these are fallacious theories which have no real substance. And so therefore here, Krishna is clearly establishing, or Vyasadeva is clearly establishing that it is ultimately Krishna who is the creator, maintainer, and destroyer of the entire universes. And he is present throughout the entire creation through his various energies. So he's Abhigya. Abhigya means all-knowing. He knows everything about this entire creation. Okay. Okay, now let's read this quote of Srila Prabhupada. Somebody can read.
God by his plenary expansion. He is situated everywhere. Therefore, his name is Vasudev. Now, Vasudev is origin of everything. So that is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Bhagavad Gita 7.19. Anyone who has understood that everything, whatever we see, that is Vasudev. But we should always remember that Vasudev is everything. Still, everything is not Vasudev. Just like a big factory in your country or in America, that Ford, Mr. Ford, he has got a very big factory. So in the factory, everywhere the Mr. Ford is there. But if you have to see Mr. Ford, you cannot see the car Ford and you become satisfied. The car is also written there, Ford. So if I want to see Mr. Ford, and if we see the car and we say, now I have met with Mr. Ford, that is foolishness. The car is Ford, but Ford is not the car.
Okay, so so this is the relationship of Krishna with his various energies. So Krishna is spread throughout the entire creation through his various energies. Just like in the 9th chapter of the Gita, 4th verse, Krishna says, Maya tadam idam sarvam jagat apyakta murtina matstani sarvabhutani na cham tesho avastitaha. So he says that how he is present throughout the entire universe. Maya tadam idam sarvam jagat. How he is present? Avyakta murtina, in his unmanifested form. That is through his different energies. He is present everywhere. So therefore, Krishna is everywhere through his different energies. So one can say Krishna is everywhere. But at the same time, it is not that Krishna is personally present everywhere. He is present through his different energies. So therefore, it is not that we can, though everything is Krishna, but we cannot worship anything and everything as Krishna. So just like here is given the example. So every car is, Ford is written on the car. That means every car is Ford. Correct. The car is Ford, but the actual Mr. Ford is not the car. Right. So the car is Ford. Why? Because it is like his expansion. Because he's manufacturing the car is like his expansion. So the car is Ford. But if you want to see Mr. Ford, then he's in one place. So you can see him only there. So therefore, the Ford is not the car. So similarly, the entire universe is Krishna, but Krishna is not the universe. So he's manifested throughout the universe through his various energies. But at the same time, Krishna is also separate from this creation. Of course, that is a discussion of Bhagavad Gita. That entire section in Bhagavad Gita, 9.4 to 10, discusses this philosophical point. Okay. Now, Vishwanath Thakur, commenting on this verse, he speaks about this Anvayad and Itarataha, directly and indirectly. So please read. Somebody who has not yet read can read.
Lord's supreme power is indicated in this verse with Janmadi Asya Yata, Vedanta Sutra 1.1.2. Let us meditate on the Supreme Lord, from whom Yata arises creation, maintenance, and destruction, Janmadi, of the universe, Asya. Should we meditate on time, which causes all this? No, the Lord is the cause, because he is the material and efficient cause. Anvayad itaratas cha. Anvayad itarata can mean Vyatri, Vyatireka, which is talking about causality, causality can refer to cause and effect. The Lord in relation to the universe is like the earth, which as a material cause is inherent in the pot, and the pot as an effect is inherent in the material cause, is inherent in its material cause, the earth. Thus the phrase means that the Lord is material cause. Upadana karna. The word cha indicates the efficient cause, nimit karna, which is time, because the Lord takes the form of time to influence Prakriti. Thus the Lord is the cause Janma by being the material, Anvyat, Itaratata, and the efficient cause, Cha.
Okay, so these are little technical details which he's explaining. Of course, many of these things are explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also. So, so basically, he's talking about this Anvayat Itara, directly and indirectly. So he's talking about the material cause and the efficient cause. So he's given the example of the pot. So just like in the case of the pot, there is an immediate cause and there is a remote cause. So these same terminologies, simple terms, immediate cause, remote cause, or material cause, efficient cause. So the material cause means from where the materials are coming. So if you take the example of a pot, the material cause of the pot is the earth, correct? But does the earth by itself produce the pot? No, there is a potter behind who actually produces the pot. So he's called as the efficient cause, the nimitta karan. So similarly, here in the creation of the universe also, there is the upadan karan, the material cause, which is basically the Mahad Tattva from where all the material elements come. But there is also the efficient cause, who is basically Mahavishnu, who is an expansion of Supreme Lord Krishna. So, but here we find that Krishna is both. Krishna is both the material cause as well as the efficient cause, because ultimately without his intervention, nothing happens. So therefore, but directly, as we already studied, directly he's the primary creator. He's the one who is initiating the creation. So he's the efficient cause. And then of course, the material cause is what happens subsequently when all the material elements are created. And so that is how he's indirectly involved. So directly he's involved by activating the material nature, and then the material nature produces the various elements, which are the immediate cause of the creation of the material universes. Okay, and here is giving another meaning to this. Okay, we won't go into so many details. Okay, you can read this.
On the word Anvaya, meaning sequence, can mean that the Lord is creation and destruction, Janmadi, because he is the whole sequence of creation, maintenance, and destruction. The universe itself is kept at a distance from the Swarupa of the Lord by the use of the descriptive and itirataha different. Since the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the universe is different from the Lord's Swarupa Shakti, cha indicates it is non-different from the Maya Shakti. Thus, Anvayad itirataha cha means the Lord is a creator, maintainer, and destroyer, since he is non-different from the universe in its phases of creation, maintenance, and destruction, but this universe is different from his Swarupa and non-different from his Maya Shakti.
Yes, so he is directly involved. This is very similar to that Upadan Karan and Nimitta Karan, the material cause and the efficient cause. So he is directly involved with the material universe through his Maya Shakti. But he is indirectly involved because actually Krishna is not directly involved. In fact, even Mahavishnu is not directly involved. Mahavishnu's glance also goes through Sadashiv. And so therefore, he's indirectly involved, but he's directly involved because because he initiates the creation. And also these various Shaktis, the Maya Shakti. The Maya Shakti is directly involved with the creation, but ultimately Maya Shakti is his Shakti, Krishna Shakti. So that is how he is involved both directly as well as indirectly. So directly is involved because the Shaktis like Maya Shakti is coming from him, but at the same time his Swarupa, his transcendental form is not, or the internal potency is not involved with the creation of the material universe. So therefore it is only indirect. Okay, fine. Okay, now we'll go to the next part. Okay, any doubts so far? Okay, we'll go to the next part. We'll take a break at around 11:45. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So now the next part is, okay, before that, Cha Arteshu Abhigya and Swarat. So Abhigya means he's all-knowing, and Swarat means he's totally independent. Now, if you go further down the purport, Prabhupada is quoting on is speaking on these two words, Abhigya and Swarat. So a few sentences I'm reading. In this shloka, the particular words Abhigya and Swarat are significant. I hope everybody has got it. What way we're reading. These two words distinguish the Supreme Lord from all other living entities. No other living entity is either Abhigya or Swarat. That is, no one is either fully cognizant or fully independent. Even Brahma has to meditate upon the Supreme Lord in order to create. Then what to speak of great scientists like Einstein? The brains of such a scientist are certainly not the products of any human being. Scientists cannot manufacture such a brain, and what to speak of foolish atheists who defy the authority of the Lord. Even Mayavadi impersonalists who flatter themselves that they can become one with the Lord are neither Abhigya or Swarats. Such impersonalists undergo severe austerities to acquire knowledge, to become one with the Lord, but ultimately they become dependent on some rich disciple who supplies them with money to build monasteries and temples. And atheists like Ravana or Hiranyakashipu had to undergo severe penances before they could flout the authority of the Lord. So in this way, Srila Prabhupada is explaining here that nobody is Abhigya and Swarat. Nobody is all-knowing and nobody is totally independent. Because in this material world, everyone is dependent on somebody else, including the first created being, that is Brahma. So even Brahma, as has been explained, at the beginning of creation, he also doesn't understand what to do. But it's only when he was inspired by the Lord to do tapasya, and then ultimately he got the knowledge from the Supreme Lord. So therefore, if Brahma himself is not independent, then who else in this creation can be independent? So Prabhupada is saying, like the great scientists. So Prabhupada would often challenge that if the scientists think they're so great, then why don't they create another scientist like Einstein? That's what Prabhupada is writing here also. No, but they cannot do that. So that shows they are not independent. They're not Swarat, nor are they all-knowing. So as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the 7th chapter, 26th verse, Vedaham samaditani vartmanani charjana bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kashna. So Krishna says, I know everything, past, present, and future of all the living entities, but me no one knows. So in this way, only Krishna can claim to be Abhigya and Swarat. Okay, now the next part is Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. Muhyanti Yat Suryaha. Yes, so okay, somebody can read this paragraph beginning with, in the Shruti mantra, it is also stated that
Hare Krishna.
yes, somebody read.
May
Go ahead, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. In the Shruti mantra, it is also stated that the absolute whole or the Brahman is the ultimate source of everything. Everything emanates from him and everything is maintained by him. And at the end, everything enters into him. That is the law of nature. In the Smriti mantra, the same is confirmed. It is said that the source from which everything emanates at the beginning of the Brahma's millennium and the reservoir of which everything ultimately enters is the absolute truth or Brahman. Material scientists take it for granted that ultimate source of planetary system is sun, but they are unable to explain the source of sun. Herein, the ultimate source is explained. According to Vedic literatures, Brahma, who may be compared to the sun, is not the ultimate creator. It is stated in this sloka that Brahma was taught Vedic knowledge by the personality of Godhead. One may argue that the Brahma, being the original living being, could not be inspired because there was no other being living at that time. Herein it is stated that Supreme Lord inspired the secondary creator Brahma in order the Brahma could carry out his creative functions. So the supreme intelligence behind the creation is the Supreme Godhead Sri Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna states that it is he only who superintends the creative energy prakriti, which constitutes the totality of matter. Therefore, Sri Vyasdeva does not worship Brahma, but Supreme Lord, who guides Brahma in his creative activities. In this
Yes, fine.
Thank you.
Yes, so that's how. So even Brahma is not independent. He has to depend on the Supreme Lord, and at the beginning of creation, Brahma, he gets that knowledge from the Supreme Lord as to how to create. Okay, so here, yeah, so Brahma is dependent on the Lord. So one may object that it's well known that Brahma did not study the Vedas from anyone. That is true. He received it in his mind. So even though he did not study them, but he received it in his mind. Hridaya, that's what it said. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. Here Brahma refers to, in the verse, the word Brahma refers to Shabda Brahma, the transcendental knowledge. Adi Kavaye refers to Brahma. And then someone may argue, I'm reading from this Vishwanath Thakur's commentary here. Someone may argue perhaps Brahma realized the truth of the Vedas on his own, from within the mind. Just as a person sometimes gets a realization during sleep. To answer this argument, then it is said that Brahma independently does not have the power to realize this knowledge, for even the greatly learned are bewildered about this. Yad Suraya Muyanti. Muyanti Yad Suraya. So this is the refutation for this argument that somebody may say, oh yes, Brahma, he got the knowledge from his own mind, his own realization. So here he's saying that no, that's not possible, because even the greatest of the devatas are also put in illusion. They cannot understand. Muyanti Yat Surya. So therefore, it is not possible for Brahma to have got the knowledge on his own, but he received that knowledge from the Supreme Lords. Okay. Prabhupada's lecture, please read.
So I am unconscious to what certain extent only, not I am fully. I am not a beginner. I'm not very expert, and these are simple truths. But these rascals are claiming that I am God. God is not only conscious, he's abhigyana. He's very expert, knows everything, and Sorat.
Continue.
Not to get a beginner or experience, we have to consult somebody. But God is Sorat. Sorat means he's personal, so he's independent that he does not require to take anyone knowledge. He does not require to take knowledge from anyone. That is God.
Yes. So he doesn't have to take knowledge from anyone else. Everyone else has to take knowledge from him, but he does not have to take knowledge from anyone else. He's totally Swarat and Abhigya. So he's self-sufficient. Okay, this is an interesting quote. Somebody else read. Where's wait, you already read. Somebody who did not read. Where is Antaryami Balram Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Reading now.
I remember you very well from east of Kailash.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Just like sometimes the atheist class of men inquire that if God is the original father, the supreme father of everyone, then who is God's father? The answer is that God has no father. He is self-sufficient. Therefore, this word is used, Sorat. Sorat means self-sufficient. So far, we are concerned, I've got my father. My father has got father. His father has got father. Father, go on. When you come to a person who has no more father, that is God. That is the test. If you find somebody that he has no father, then he is God. And if some rascal comes and says, I am God, then you ask him whether you have got father. As soon as he says that yes, I have got father, then he is dog. So in your country, so many invitations God come. I know this, but you ask them to test him whether you have got father. If he says yes, I have got father, then you say you are dog. Therefore, God's another name is unborn. Anadir Adi. Anadi means he has no source of emanation, but he is Adi. He is the original source of everything. Therefore, it is said Anadir Adi. Yes.
So yes, so that is a simple test to know whether somebody is God or not. Just have to ask him whether your father. If he has father, then he cannot be God, because God is one who has no father. He is the source, he is the cause for everyone and everything else. Okay, so now to the next point. I think so. We can take a break at this point. Okay, fine. So we'll take a break, 10 minutes break, and then we'll continue. All right? Okay, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Can we begin?
I'm ready.
Yes, you are ready, but what about the others?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, you will take the question later. I'd send a question on chat box.
Anyway, what's the question?
The question is related to the previous quote which we were reading, that for the father and all. So as God also had different names of his father, like Nanda Maharaj, Dashrath, and Jagannath Mishra. So if the question comes like this, so what we can answer for this?
So you're asking that the Lord has a father and mother in different incarnations.
In one sense, we can say he himself chose Prabhuji. So he has.
So do you know of an avatar who appeared without father and mother?
An avatar who appeared
without any father mother?
There
a
are.
living father mother.
Yes.
Who's that?
Kurma avatar is there. Dhanvantari is there.
And very famous avatar.
Nrsimhadev.
So is Krishna dependent on father and mother to appear?
Certainly, he is not dependent on any material condition.
Yes. So that's why he's called. That's why he has no father. He's Anadi Adi. He doesn't have any other origin. He is the origin of everyone else. He's not dependent. He accepts them as father and mother just as a pastime to give these devotees some service because they desire that service. So Krishna is giving them that service and then he's reciprocating with them. So that's all his pastime. He's not dependent. Correct?
Yeah.
Also, Prabhuji, can we say that, these are not his biological fathers. He has just chosen them to appear.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's true. So that's what, it's just a pastime. It's not, he's not dependent on them to appear in this world. Okay, Dhara Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji, it's good.
Okay, fine. Okay, so now we go to the next point. Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra sargo mrisha. So now he's saying that, so previously he said Muyyanti at Surya, even the great demigods are bewildered by the material creation. So therefore, even Brahmaji, he is dependent on the Supreme Lord to get true knowledge, because even the greatest of demigods are bewildered. And we know, of course, even Brahmaji got bewildered later on. Even Indra got bewildered. So why even the greatest of demigods are bewildered? Because the nature of this material world, Tejo, Vari, Mridam. So this nature of the material world is what? This material world is made up of what? Teja, Vari, Mridam. Yatha, Vinimaya. Vinaya means action and reaction. So basically, action reaction between these three elements. Water, Teja means fire, Vari means water, Mridam means earth. So material world, everything is created of these elements, correct? As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter 4th verse. What is 7th chapter 4th verse? Somebody should be able to tell him within half a second. Bhume rapo nalovayu kammano buddhirevacha ahankara ityame bhinna prakriti rashada. So all this is the apara prakriti of the Lord. So all this bhumi rapo nala, same thing. Tejo vari mridam. So this material world is made up of these material elements. And of course, Prabhupada gives a practical example So just like in this world, whatever you want to create, just like this building you want to create, it's made up of what? Bricks. What is brick made up of? Take earth, mix it with water, put it in fire, it becomes brick. So basically it's a combination of these three: earth, water, fire. So anything that's there in the material world is basically made up of these material elements. So, and then in the material world, ultimately, everything is influenced by the three modes, three sarga. Three sarga means the three modes of material nature. Now, this material world, which is made up of these various material elements and the material modes, it is Amrisha. Amrisha. Amrisha means almost factual. Almost factual. Visargo Amrisha. So why does there appear to be reality in the material world? So even though it is not factual in the sense that it is not permanent. So we know we don't accept the theory, the Mayavad philosophy of Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. So we know that the world is not mithya, it is not false, it is true, but it is temporary. But it appears to be under illusion, it appears to be reality. That means it appears to be permanent. Kuhakam. Kuhakam. So that's comparing the material and the spiritual worlds. Kuhakam means illusion. So under illusion, the material world appears to be like the spiritual world. So dhamna svena sada nirasta. So nirasta means without. That is the spiritual world. The spiritual world is without kuhakam, without illusion. But the material world, there is kuhakam, there is illusion. There's a difference between material and spiritual world. In the spiritual world, there's no illusion. Nirasta kuhakam. But in the material world, there is illusion. So even though the material world is temporary, it's not absolute reality, but still one thinks it to be absolute reality, permanent, and thinks that one can enjoy this material worlds. So therefore, it translates as only because of him do the material universes temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature appear factual. So they appear factual, although they are unreal. Of course, the word unreal in this sense means temporary, not that they're false. So now Prabhupada is commenting on this. So this is the absolute and relative truths. So there's an absolute truth and there is relative truth. Okay, now you can read from this paragraph. This paragraph, it begins with Srimad Bhagavatam is the narration of the Swarupa of the Lord manifested by his internal potency. Did you find it?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, please read.
Srimad Bhagavatam is the narration of the Swarupa of the Lord manifested by his internal potency. And this potency is distinguished from the external potency, which has manifested the cosmic world, which is within our experience. Srila Vyasadeva makes a clear distinction between the two in this shloka. Shri Vyasadeva says herein that the manifested internal potency is real, whereas the external manifested energy in the form of material existence is only temporary and illusory. Like the mirage in the desert. In the desert mirage, there is no actual water. There is only the appearance of water. Real water is somewhere else. The manifested cosmic creation appears as reality, but reality of which there is but a shadow is in the spiritual world. Absolute truth is in the spiritual sky, not the material sky. In the material sky, everything is relative truth. That is to say, one truth depends on something else. This cosmic creation results from interaction of the three modes of nature, and the temporary manifestations are so created as to present an illusion of reality to be bewildered mind of the conditioned soul, who appears in so many species of life, including higher demigods like Brahma, Indra, Chandra, and so on. In actuality, there is no reality in the manifested world. There appears to be reality. However, because of the true reality which exists in the spiritual world, where the personality of Godhead eternally exists, with his transcendental paraphernalia.
Yes. So this is absolute truth and relative truth. So absolute truth means that truth which does not depend on anything else. And relative truth means it depends on something else. It's relative. It's relative to something else. For example, the moment you say this is bad, that means what? There has to be something good. So that's why this is the example of the mirage in the desert. So in the mirage in the desert, it appears as if there is water. Even though there's no water, it appears as if there is water. So it is an illusion, but it's appearing like reality. But the appearance of water indicates that there is actually water somewhere else. Correct. Srila Prabhupada also gives another example. He says, just like counterfeit note. So if you see a counterfeit note, what does it indicate? It indicates as a real note also. So similarly, the material world is only a perverted reflection, as Krishna speaks about in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Urdhva Moolam Adha Shakam, Ashwatham. So the upside down banyan tree, that is the material world. It's a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So similarly, so just like the mirage in the desert. So the material world appears as if it is real. But that very example of the Ashwatha tree in the 15th chapter of the Gita, Vishwanath Thakur explains that Ashwatha, Ashwa. So why Krishna specifically chose this Ashwatha tree? Means not, Shwa means tomorrow. Means not, Shwa means tomorrow. That means this tree will not last till tomorrow. That means it's not permanent. It is temporary. That is the nature of material existence. But because of the covering of Maya, the Avnatmika Shakti, this world appears to be real. Even though it is temporary, it appears as if it is permanent. It appears as if one can enjoy this material world forever. So this is all an illusion. This is all an illusion which is created by the material energy. So in this material world, one truth depends upon another truth. That is called as relative truth. So no one is independent. Nothing is independent. So the moment you say hot, there has to be something which is cold. It's relative to that. So only because you have experience of cold, therefore you can say that this is cold and this is hot. Only when both the experiences are there, you can distinguish. So that's why, that's the meaning of one truth depends on some other truth. It's not absolute. So Prabhupada is commenting on this relative and the absolute truth. Please read.
But we are offering obeisances to the relative truth. Relative truth means that has been explained here that Tejovari Mridam Yatha Vinamayo Yatra Tri Sargo Brisha. We are offering obeisances to a temporary manifestation of Tejovari Mridam Vinimaya. Tejo means fire, Vari means water, and Mrita means earth. So you take earth, mix with water, and put it into the fire. Put it into fire. Then grind it. So it becomes mortar and the brick. And you prepare a very big skyscraper and offer obeisances there. Yes. Oh, such a big house, mine. Tisargo Misa. But there is another place. Dhamna Swena Nirast Kuhakam. We are offering here obeisances to the brick, stone, iron. Just like in country, just like in your country, especially in all Western countries, there are so many statues. The same thing, Tejovari Mridam Vinimaya. But when we install DT, actually the form, eternal form of Krishna, nobody offer obeisances. They all go to offer obeisances to the dead. Just like in British Museum, they are standing in queue to offer obeisances to a dead body. It has no value, but they are wasting their time. But here, if they are invited, oh, they are worshipping idol. Why shall I go? Why shall I go there? This is called illusion. They are actually doing that, obeisances, but not to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yes. So this is a material world. Everyone makes these things out of Tejovari Mridam, and they think that is permanent, eternal, worshipable. So that's the illusion in this material world. Okay, read this. This is again the continuation of the commentary of Vishwanath Thakur.
There is another objection. When we talk about meditation, it indicates that we meditate on an object that has a form. Forms are made of 3 gunas of matter and must be therefore temporary. This objection is answered in the 3rd line. It is like reversal, or one thing appearing as another, vinimaya. Just as light may appear to be water, or water may appear to be earth, or earth in forms like glass may appear to be like water to an ignorant person. In this way, one falsely, Mrisha, thinks that the perfect spiritual form of the Lord to be made of the 3 gunas, 3 sarga. Gopalatapani Upanishad says, Tam ekam govindam satchidanand vigraham vrindavan surabhura talasinam. I saw that one form of Govind, a form of eternity, knowledge and bliss, seated at the base of desired tree in Vrindavan.
That's very interesting. See how Srila Prabhupada has given this slightly technical explanation which the acharyas give in a very practical way. So basically, this Tejo, Vari, Mridam, Vinimaya. Vinimaya means thinking one form to be another. That is illusion. So thinking a temporary form to be eternal, or thinking the earth to be water. That is what is basically mirage. Mirages think there is only earth, but one thinks it to be water. So, or one may think water to be earth. So these are all illusions that we find in the material world. So similarly, one illusion is what? To think that the form of the Lord, which is Satchidananda, is material. So that is another illusion of the material world. And that Srila Prabhupada is explaining in a very practical way in the previous quote we just read. So Prabhupada is speaking exactly the same thing, but he puts it down in a very practical way. They're going to offer obeisances to the dead in the British Museum, but they don't accept the deity of the Lord. So deity, they say this is idol. Why should we worship idol? But they are going to worship the dead in the British Museum. So this is the illusion. This is the vinimaya. This is the illusion. So they don't know whom to worship, whom not to worship. Why? Because they are thinking that the form of the Lord is also material, like an ordinary person. That's basically, of course, Mayavad. So that is the meaning of vinimaya, mistaking one thing to be the other. And that is the illusion of this material world. So the material world, in spite of being temporary, one thinks the material world to be permanent. And what is permanent, that is a supreme Lord, permanent and eternal and spiritual, one thinks that to be temporary and material. So these are the illusions of the material world. Okay, fine. This is okay. Now talking about this absolute and relative truths, Prabhupada makes another point. Where is this? Okay, this is the second last paragraph of Srila Prabhupada's purport. So somebody read the second last paragraph. Srila Vishwanath Thakur specifically deals.
Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura specifically deals with the original and pure sex psychology, Adirasa, devoid of all mundane inability. The whole material creation is moving under the principle of sex life. In modern civilization, sex life is the focal point for all activities. Wherever one turns his face, he sees sex life predominant. Therefore, sex life is not unreal. Its reality is experienced in the spiritual world. The material sex life is but a perverted reflection of the original fact. The original fact is in the absolute truth, and thus the absolute truth cannot be impersonal. It is not possible to be impersonal and contain pure sex life. Consequently, the impersonalist philosophers have given indirect impetus to the abominable mundane sex life because they have overstressed the impersonality of the absolute truth, ultimate truth. Consequently, men without information of the actual spiritual form of sex has accepted perverted material sex life as the all in all. Therefore, there is a distinction between sex life in the diseased material condition and the spiritual sex life.
Yes. So on the same point of absolute and relative truths. So as we were saying that The material world is simply a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So that means whatever exists in the material world has to be there in the spiritual world. So we have this material sex life, then there has to be original sex life in the spiritual world. Correct. Because this is only a perverted reflection. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada is writing that the sex life is not unreal. Its reality is experienced in the spiritual world. The material sex life is but a perverted reflection of the original fact. So it's originally there in the spiritual world. And we know originally what we may say is spiritual sex life is basically, or pure sex life is basically pure love that exists between Krishna and all the eternal associates of the Lord in the spiritual world. That is pure sex life or pure love, basically. That's pure love, which has no tinge of lust or selfishness. It is simply based on selflessness to give only pleasure to the other person. So Krishna wants to give pleasure to the devotees, devotees want to give pleasure to Krishna. That's pure love. But for our understanding, it can be called as pure sex life, right? And the material sex life is perverted reflection. So this is only lust, which is simply based on selfishness. There is no selflessness here. Now, Prabhupada makes this interesting point here. Consequently, the impersonalist philosophers have given indirect impetus to the abominable mundane sex life because they have overstressed the impersonality of the ultimate truth. Somebody would like to explain the statement? How impersonalists have given stress to mundane sex life?
Yes, because they do not believe in the existence of the God, and they're just making an imagination, and they consider the physical form of human being as a real one. So they have overstressed this point.
Okay. Somebody else like to add to that?
Why the absolute truth has a chance to enjoy? Why can't we enjoy?
Okay. Somebody else?
They say that this is, since the absolute has no personal form, and in the personal form, sex is the highest pleasure that you can have. So that is the reason, that is why they emphasize.
Yes, that is true. So because they consider the absolute truth to be impersonal, correct? The impersonalists consider the absolute truth to be impersonal. So if the absolute truth is impersonal, then there is no question of pure love. There's no relationships. Relationships can exist only between persons, correct? So if the supreme absolute truth is impersonal, that means there are no relationships. And so then the only relationships exist in the material world. So that's how the impersonalists, by saying that the absolute truth has no form, no relationships, no feelings, then where is the pleasure there? Because pleasure is in relationships. But if you say that the absolute truth has no form, then there cannot be relationships between formless things. So no form, no relationships, no pleasure. Then which is the other option then? Material pleasure. The only other option is material relationships and material pleasure. And that is why ultimately the Mayavadis, because they don't get any pleasure, they don't get any happiness, they don't get ultimate happiness in their philosophy or in their practices. Ultimately, Srila Prabhupada explains in many places, therefore, ultimately they come down to performing material activities. And they once again get into material life because they don't find any pleasure in their activities. Because real pleasure exists only when there are relationships. But who is Krishna basically? As the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu says, Krishna is what? Akhila Rasamrita Murti. He is the embodiment of all rasas, all relationships. He has a relationship with every jiva to the ultimate perfection. So therefore, when one understands the Vaishnava philosophy, then one understands that how real relationships are with Krishna, and one can achieve the highest happiness in relationship with Krishna. But the relationships in the material world, on the other hand, are only a perverted reflection of those original relationships in the spiritual world. And so the relationships in the material world are simply a cause of distress. But the relationships in the spiritual world are a cause of ultimate happiness. So this is the correct understanding. But because the impersonalists don't accept the form of the Lord, so no form, no relationships, no happiness. Then what's the alternative? Material forms, material relationships, and so-called material happiness. That is what they turn to, because they don't experience that happiness in spiritual relationships, right? So that's the discussion on the absolute and relative truths that is mentioned here. And finally, the last part of the verse is Satyam Param Dhimahi. So Dhamna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuvakam. So Nirasta Kuvakam, where there is no illusion, that is the spiritual world. And then finally he says, Satyam Param Dhimahi. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. In this context, Prabhupada says this. So the word Dhimahi indicates that Vyasadeva is invoking the Gayatri mantra. And so those who are second initiated know the word Dhimahi comes in many of the Gayatri mantras. So what is the import of that? He says one must therefore acquire Brahmanical qualities or be perfectly situated in the quality of goodness in order to chant the Gayatri mantra successfully and then attain to the stage of transcendently realizing the Lord, his name, his fame, his qualities, and so on. Okay, so that is the purpose why Vyasadeva is invoking the Gayatri mantra, so that people can come to the mode of goodness to understand the absolute truth. As we know this philosophical theme, and that is in order to understand the Supreme Lord, who is pure goodness, one must at least come to the platform of goodness, which is a conducive platform to understand pure goodness. And we also know that the Gayatri mantra cannot be chanted by everyone unless one is second initiated and qualified. One cannot chant the Gayatri mantra. So here, Srila Vyasadeva is giving a chance indirectly to all people to chant the Gayatri mantra and thus become qualified to understand the absolute truth. That is why he's invoking the Gayatri mantra, to indicate the importance of coming to Sattvagun to understand the absolute truth. And by using the word Dhimahi, is also indirectly giving people a chance to chant, at least a part of the Gayatri mantra, and thus become purified. So that is the significance of this Dhimahi. And Prabhupada is also explaining another point here. So if you see this paragraph, unscrupulous persons go immediately to the 10th canto. If somebody has got that, you can read it.
Unscrupulous persons go immediately to the 10th canto, and especially to the 5 chapters which describe the Lord's rasa dance. This portion of the Srimad Bhagavatam is the most confidential part of this great literature. Unless one is thoroughly accomplished in the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, one is sure to misunderstand the Lord's worshipable transcendental pastimes called rasa dance and his love affairs with the gopis. This subject matter is highly spiritual, and only the liberated persons who have gradually attained to the stage of Paramhansa can transcendentally relish this rasa dance. Srila Vyasadeva therefore gives the reader the chance to gradually develop spiritual realization before actually relishing the essence of the pastimes of the Lord. Therefore, he purposely invokes a Gayatri mantra, Dhimahi. This Gayatri mantra is meant for spiritually advanced people. When one is successful in chanting the Gayatri mantra, he can enter into the transcendental position of the Lord.
Okay, fine. So that's another reason. So by chanting the Gayatri mantra, one gets purified, basically. One gets purified, one comes to the mode of goodness, and then one can actually come to the liberated platform, and then one can actually relish the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, like the rasa dance. And so therefore, to come to that platform of relishing the 10th canto, then one must gradually get purified to reading the 9 cantos. And so therefore, by invoking the Gayatri mantra, he's giving people a chance to get purified, to ultimately come to the transcendental position, to relish the rasa dance. Now coming to the word Satyam. So in this connection, the acharyas are quoting this verse from the 12th canto, 12, 13, 19. So anyway, somebody can just read the translation. So here you can see the last line of the verse. Tat shuddham vimalam vishokam amritam satyam param dhimahi. So here also the same words are coming. Satyam param dhimahi.
I meditate upon the pure and spotless supreme absolute truth, who is free from suffering and death, and who in the beginning personally revealed this incomparable torchlight of knowledge of Brahma. Brahma. Brahma then spoke it to the sage Narad, who narrated it to Krishna Devapayan Vyas. Srila Vyas revealed this Bhagavatam to the greatest of the sages Sukadeva Goswami, and Sukadev mercifully spoke it to the Maharaja Parikshit.
Yes, so here he is describing how the knowledge of the Bhagavatam has been handed down. But here this verse is being quoted in the connection of Satyam Param Dhimahi, the pure and spotless supreme absolute truth. And this is again a verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita talking about the Gayatri mantra. Gayatri ra arthei grantha arambhana satyam param sambandha dhimahi sadhana prayojan. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's the explanation of the Brahma Gayatri mantra. The absolute truth, Satyam Param, indicates the relationship, that is a Sambandha Gyan. And we meditate Dhimahi, Satyam Param Dhimahi. We meditate Dhimahi on him, indicates the execution of devotional service and the ultimate goal of life. So that is the sadhana and the prayojan. The word Dhimahi, meditate, indicates the sadhana in order to achieve the prayojan. So the Satyam Param indicates the Sambandha Gyan, that is the relationship with the absolute truth. And the Dhimahi indicates the Abhideya or the sadhana in order to achieve the prayojan. And then there is also this verse from the 10th canto, 2nd chapter, 26th verse, which is the praise of the demigods to Krishna within the womb. So this is another famous verse which indicates or explains Satyam Param. Satyavratam Satyaparam Tri Satyam Satyasya Yonim Nihitam Cha Satye Satyasya Satyam Rita Satya Netram Satyatmakam Tvam Sharanam Prapannaha. Somebody read the translation.
The demigod prayed, "O Lord, you never deviate from your vow, which is always perfect, because whatever you decide is perfectly correct and cannot be stopped by anyone. Being present in the three phases of cosmic manifestation, creation, maintenance, and annihilation, you are the supreme truth. Indeed, unless one is completely truthful, one cannot achieve your favor, which therefore cannot be achieved by Hippocrates. You are the active principle, the real truth in all the ingredients of creation, and therefore you are known as Antaryami, the inner force. You are equal to everyone, and your instructions apply for everyone for all time. You are the beginning of all truths. Therefore, offering our obeisances, we surrender unto you. Kindly give us protection.
Okay, fine. We are now going to this. Fine, and so Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport of this first verse. The Srimad Bhagavatam will gradually elevate the unbiased reader to the highest perfectional stage of transcendence. It will enable him to transcend the three modes of material activities, fruitive actions, speculative philosophy, and worship of functional deities as inculcated in Vedic verses. Hare Krishna. Any questions on the first verse?
Prabhuji, why Vyasdev is called the fine Vyas? We read.
Yes, so this is the incarnation of Vyasdev in this age. In this age, so Vyasdev is also like a post. So Vyasdev is one who compiles the Vedas. So in different ages, there are different incarnations of Vyas. So in this age, the Vyasdev is called as Krishna Dvaipayan Vyas.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, I have one question.
Go ahead.
You told that when Krishna incarnated in three Purusha avatars, then creation was there with the help of Sadashiva. Can you please explain that?
How? Oh, this is Radhakesha Prabhu. Huh? Humble
Yes,
obeisances, Prabhuji. It's a great honor to have you in the class. And I'm amazed you found time to come to this class. Yes, Prabhuji. So your question is, what about Sadashiv?
Yeah.
So yes, so it is explained that the glance of Mahavishnu doesn't go directly on the material nature of Pradhan, but it is basically Sadashiv along with the material energy, that is Maya Shakti. It is they who actually directly they activate the creation of the material elements. So because they are in contact with material nature, Mahavishnu directly does not come in contact with material nature. He is totally spiritual. But and therefore it is explained that Mahavishnu, in order to create the material world, he expands himself as Sadashiv. So Sadashiv comes in contact with Tamogun in order to create this material world. So Mahavishnu, he doesn't come in contact with the material world, but his expansion is Sadashiv, who comes in contact with the material world for the purpose of creation. So that is why the famous example is given. The difference between Vishnu and Shiva is like that of milk and curd.
Milk and curd, yes.
Yes. So because there is not much difference, because Sadashiva is also an expansion of Vishnu only. But still there's a difference because Mahavishnu does not come in contact with material nature, but Sadashiva comes in contact.
Where is it quoted?
This actually, Srila Prabhupada explains this in some of his purports. I think so even in this first canto, we will come across one purport where Srila Prabhupada explains this. I think so in the third chapter only, we'll be studying this third chapter. So there also Srila Prabhupada explains this point. And of course, you will find details in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Adi Leela, where creation is explained in the chapter glories of Nityanand Prabhu, glories of Advaita Acharya. So Advaita Acharya is a combination of Sadashiva and Mahavishnu.
Yeah.
So in that chapter, you will find.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any other questions, or we can go to the second verse? Okay, so we'll go to the second verse. Dharma projita kaitavatra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapatrayon moolanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Va Parerishvara Sadhyoradya Avarudyate Atra Kritibi Shushru Shubhish Takshanat. Somebody read the translation, please.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Puran propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Yes. So the first thing that Vyasadeva is saying here regarding the subject matter of the Bhagavatam, he is saying dharma prochita kaitava. So all this kaitava dharma, cheating religion or pretentious religion, is kicked out. Prochita. Ujjita means kicked out, rejected. Prochita means completely. Maybe we'll come across that quote, but Srila Prabhupada, he gives the example that just like when one is cleaning the house, so with the broom, one takes all the dirt and completely throws it out. Or we can recollect the Gundicha Marjan Leela of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How Mahaprabhu, one cleaning, he threw all the dirt out, then second cleaning, even the fine particles he threw out. So just like that, projita, completely throwing out all types of cheating religion. So that is the meaning of dharma projita kaitava. All types of cheating religion, pretentious religion are defeated or thrown out. So what is the distinction between real and pretentious religion? Any thoughts?
Pretentious religion would talk only about dharma, arth, kam, and moksha, while the real religion would talk about the prema pumardama.
Okay, good. Yes, good point. Yes. So the real religion talks only about loving God, whereas all the other types of religions talk about dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Yes. Any other points?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Real religion talks about our Swarupa Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishna Nityadas, and pretentious religion doesn't talk about our true relationship with God.
Okay, fine.
Maybe.
That's a good point. Okay. From a true relationship. The pretentious religion then basically talk about the bodily concept. Something more?
Religion is only one, that is Sanatana Dharma. Other are cult.
Okay. Any other points?
True religion is something which is unchangeable. And false religion is you can shift from one to another.
Yes, good point. Good point. Yes. Real religion is eternal, unchangeable. Yes.
And one more thing, that religion should be think for welfare of all. Welfare for all.
Okay, real religion is about the welfare of all. Pretentious, selfish. Okay, fine. So let's see what Srila Prabhupada says. Please read. Who has not read?
May I do this?
Okay, please read.
Dharma means the real characteristic. The characteristics cannot be changed, just like the water is liquid. The characteristics is that every one of us is serving somebody superior. Therefore, it is said, Dharma projita Katva. Katva means cheating, which is not dharma, which is not the characteristic.
Continue, please.
The practice is that I am entirely servant of God. Instead of giving service to God, I am now engaged in the service of the dog. So, the standard of this so-called service, the Bhagavad Dharma is not discussed.
Yes, so as somebody did mention that point, so the real dharma is based on the fact that we are eternally servants of God, but the pretentious religion doesn't accept this, so it's not based on that. Okay. Now let's see what Srila Prabhupada talks about this point in his purport. Okay, so somebody can read the second paragraph of Srila Prabhupada's purport.
In the lower stages of human civilization, there is always competition to lord it over the material nature, or in other words, there is continuous rivalry to satisfy the senses. Driven by such consciousness, man turns to religion. He thus performs pious activities or religious functions in order to gain something material. But if such material gains are obtainable in other ways, then so-called religion is neglected. This is the situation in modern civilization. Man is thriving economically, so at present he is not very interested in religion. Churches, mosques, or temples are now practically vacant. Men are more interested in factories, shops, and cinemas than in religious places which were erected by their forefathers. This practically proves that religion is performed for some economic gains. Economic gains are needed for sense gratification. Often, when one is baffled in the pursuit of sense gratification, he takes to salvation and tries to become one with the Supreme Lord. Consequently, all these states are simply different types of sense gratification.
Yes, so basically a pretentious religion is based on dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. That's what Prabhupada is explaining. And therefore people feel that if one is not dependent on religion for economic development, then why go to temples and mosques? Because one thinks, I work in the factories, I have my business and I get money, so why should I go? to temples and mosques. So therefore, most people accept religion simply for artha or wealth. And so all these are different types of pretentious religion. Okay, Prabhupada's lecture, please read.
Others also, the so-called religious system, they also think like that. The Christians, they go to church, oh God, give us our daily bread. So this bread supplying business is like that. God simply supplies bread, or we eat and we enjoy. Similarly, the Hindu system also, there is, oh God, give me some money. I'm very poor. I'm suffering from disease. Please cure it. And so everywhere you will find some motive in religion.
Yes, so this is all motivated religion or pretentious religion. But on the other hand, the prose of Bhagavad Dharma is the transcendent religion that is the eternal function of the living being. In Srimad Bhagavatam, a distinction between real religion and pretentious religion is clearly made. Now, this is an interesting commentary from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay, let's see who can read. Where's Pran Mukunda Prabhu? No, Priya Mukunda Prabhu.
Prabhuji, just away from the computer for a second. Allow me a moment.
Okay.
Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. There are two kinds of educational systems. One deals with transcendental knowledge, Paravidya, and the other with material knowledge, Aparavidya. All the Vedas, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sam Veda, and the Athar Veda, along with the corollaries known as Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakaran, Nirukta, Chanda, and Jyotish belong to the inferior system of material knowledge, Aparavidya. By Paravidya, one can understand the Akshar, Brahma, or the absolute truth. As far as Vedic literature is concerned, the Vedanta Sutra is accepted as the Paravidya. Srimad Bhagavatam is an explanation of that Paravidya.
Okay, continue, please. You can continue.
Sorry, Modi, I was on mute. Sorry. So, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam itself, Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam, Yad Vaishnavaswam Priyam. Although Srimad Bhagavatam is counted among the Puranas, it is called the spotless Purana because it does not discuss anything material. It is liked by transcendental Vaishnava devotees. The subject matter found in the Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for the Paramhamsas. As it is said, Paramo Nirmachranam Satam Vedeya. A Paramhamsa is one who does not live in the material world and who does not envy others. Srimad Bhagavatam is Srila Vyasadev's last mature contribution, and one should read it here, and one should read and hear it in an assembly of realized souls while engaging in devotional service. At such a time, one can be liberated from all material bondage.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Sri.
Okay, so here, Srila Prabhupada is quoting from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he's talking about the two kinds of educational systems. So one deals with transcendental knowledge, Paravidya, and the other with material knowledge, Aparavidya. So in the Vedas, there are both. In the Vedas, there's Paravidya and Aparavidya. So therefore, he's saying that all the Vedas, along with their corollaries, Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakaran, and so on, belong to the inferior system of material knowledge, Aparavidya, because in most parts of the Vedas, there is description about Karmakand and Jnanakand. So both Karmakand and Jnanakand are motivated religions. So the Karmakand is talking about pious activities, material punya, getting more sense gratification, going to heavens. And the Jnanakand is essentially speaking about liberation, but both are motivated. Therefore, he's saying that therefore, he says that most of the Vedas are speaking about aparavidya. Of course, the paravidya is also there, but that's a very small section, and that's also very much hidden. Therefore, most people cannot actually find the paravidya within the Vedas. They cannot come to the conclusion. By paravidya, one can understand the akshara, the brahmana, the absolute truth. And so therefore, this is in connection to what we're discussing about the real religion and pretentious religion. So when we talk of real religion, then it is paravidya. But then pretentious religion is all about aparavidya. So, but as far as the Srimad Bhagavatam is concerned, Srimad Bhagavatam, Puranam Amalam. So it is spotless Puran. So it is only talking about paravidya. There is no aparavidya within the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, 15th chapter, verse number 12, he talks about 5 branches of irreligion, known as irreligion, vidharma, religious principles for which one is unfit, paradharma, pretentious religion, abhas, analogical religion, upadharma, and cheating religion, chaladharma. So he talks about these 5 types of irreligion. One who is aware of real religious life must abandon these 5 as irreligious. And then Srila Prabhupada is briefly defining each one of them. So somebody can read this.
Religious principles that obstruct one from following his own religion are called vidharma. Religious principles introduced by others are called paradharma. A new type of religion created by one who is falsely proud and who opposes the principles of the Vedas is called upadharma. An interpretation by one's jugglery of words is called chaladharma. Srimad Bhagavatam 7:15-13. A pretentious religious system manufactured by one who willfully neglects the prescribed duties of his orders of life is called abhasa, a dim reflection of false similarity.
Okay, so these are the definitions of these different types of irreligion. We're not going into details here. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is kicking out all these different types of irreligion. Dharma projita ketava atra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. So this Bhagavat, so the Bhagavad Dharma or the Srimad Bhagavatam, which only deals with paravidya, which only deals with pure religion, without any mixture, without any contamination, can be understood only by those who are nirmatsaranam. Satam indicates the devotees. So can be understood only by those who are nirmatsaranam, 100% pure in heart. Only they can understand. So somebody may say, then if the Bhagavatam is only meant for those who are 100% pure in heart, so who fits into that category? At least I don't fit. I don't know if some of you fit into that category.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, then we are reading under the guidance. I mean, we have so many purports of Srila Prabhupada. So I think this fills up the gap.
Yes, that's true. So yes, we are not qualified. Therefore, the instruction to study the Bhagavatam as given by Srila Swarup Mahaprabhu's assistant, what's his name?
Swarup Damodar.
Swarup Damodar. Yes, Swarup Damodar Goswami. So he said to one Bengali poet who wrote a poem which had many mistakes, philosophical flaws. So then he told him, Bhagavat Podiya Bhagavat Sthane. So the Bhagavatam must be studied under the guidance of a person Bhagavat. Then only one can understand. Otherwise, it is not possible. With contaminated heart, one cannot understand the real meaning. One will get all contaminated meanings only. So therefore, the instruction, which Srila Prabhupada often quoted this line, Bhagavat Podiya Bhagavat Sthane. The Bhagavat must be studied under the guidance and direction of a person Bhagavat. So therefore, it is very important for us to study Srila Prabhupada's purports. Now, sometimes devotees also, they just read verses and translations and go through the whole Bhagavatam and say, we have read the Bhagavatam. One can't understand anything like that. Therefore, the purports given by Srila Prabhupada, the pure Mahabhagavat, are very important for us to actually get into an understanding of the Bhagavatam. Therefore, we are spending so much time reading all the purports. Without understanding Srila Prabhupada's purports, one cannot understand the Bhagavatam. So because he is pure, then we are studying the Bhagavatam through him. And that is how we are getting a qualification to at least begin to understand the Bhagavatam. And then, of course, as we study the Bhagavatam under his direction, then we also get gradually purified. So that's how we understand Nirmat Sarana. Otherwise, the complete proper understanding of the Bhagavatam can only be possible for one who is 100% pure. So in that regard, Prabhupada is speaking about how in this material world there is competition, how everyone is envious. So in the next paragraph, Prabhupada writes that. Okay, somebody can read the next paragraph. In the Vedas.
In the Vedas, the above mentioned 4 activities are prescribed in the regulative way so that there will not be any undue competition for sense gratification. But Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all these sense gratificatory activities. It is purely transcendental literature which can be understood only by the pure devotees of the Lord who are transcendental to competitive sense gratification. In the material world, there is keen competition between animal and animal, man and man, community and community, nation and nation. But the devotees of the Lord rise above such competitions. They do not compete with the materialists because they are on the path back to Godhead, where life is eternal and blissful. Such transcendentalists are non-envious and pure in heart. In the material world, everyone is envious of everyone else, and therefore there is competition. But the transcendental devotees of the Lord are not only free from material envy, but are well-wishers to everyone, and they strive to establish a competition-less society with God in the center. The contemporary socialist conception of a competition-less society is artificial because in the socialist state, there's competition for the post of dictator. From the point of view of the Vedas or from the point of view of common human activities, sense gratification is the basis of material life. There are 3 paths mentioned in the Vedas. One involves fruitive activities to gain promotion to better planets. Another involves worshipping different demigods for promotion to the planets of the demigods. And another involves realizing the absolute truth and his impersonal feature and becoming one with him.
Okay, so that is Karma Kand, Jnana Kand, and Upasana Kand. So, but in any case, so basically, as Prabhupada is explaining, so in the material world, there is always envy. Envy means competition. So that's what happens in the material world. There's competition, man and man, animal and animal. And so always competition because of envy. But the devotees of the Lord are transcendental to competitive sense gratification. So because they have given up the need for sense gratification, then therefore they're not competing for sense gratification. They're not interested in that. So that is the Nirmat Sarana. Okay. So, okay, Prabhupada's lecture on this point of Nirmat Sarana. Please read. Let's call on some other devotees who have not yet read. Where's this Priya Satyavan Mataji? Are you there?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, can you read, please?
Yes, Prabhuji. Matsarata means to become intolerant when his neighbor is prosperous. In our Krishna conscious movement, if you become envious, oh my God, brother, oh, he has become so popular. He is making so much progress. So put some impediments towards his progressive path. This is also material. So this Bhagavad Dharma is not for such envious persons. Therefore, it is stated here, Parmo nirmatsaranam satam, not for the envious persons. The envious persons, that means materialists. They will not be able to understand what is spoken in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Vaikuntha consciousness is that if your neighbor, if your brother is prosperous or progressive, then one should think, oh, he's so nice that he has served God so nicely. God is so pleased upon him that he is making so nice progress. This is Vaikuntha consciousness.
Okay, so this is Vaikuntha consciousness. So even as devotees, it is very important that we cultivate this consciousness. Srila Prabhupada expected all our ISKCON temples to be in Vaikuntha, but it is our responsibility to create that Vaikuntha consciousness. And so the Vaikuntha consciousness means we don't envy somebody who's making progress. Rather, one becomes happy to see God brothers, God sisters, or anybody else making progress. And so we won't read this right now, but you can take down the reference, and it's a very beautiful reference. So this is 7.5.12 purport. So this is beautiful reference to illustrate the Vaikuntha thinking and the Vaikuntha competition. And also another important purport in that connection of non-enviousness is 10.13.60. So you can take down this reference also. You can read it later. So now the next point, Paramo nirmatsaranam satam. Next point is Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu. So here, Vastavam Vastu. Vastavam Vastu means what is factual. So the Bhagavatam helps one to understand the factual substance, Vastavam Vastu. So Prabhupada is commenting on that here in this lecture. Please read.
It is said, Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam Tapat Trayon Moolanam. There is Vastu. Vastu means Samam Bonam, original, and the Vastava, just like Krishna and his different energies. The different energies are called Vastava in relationship with Vastu, and Krishna is Vastu. So here it is said that Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu. Vastava, you can understand Krishna in all his features, and if you understand, then Shivadam, it is auspicious. Tapatrayon Moolanam.
Yes, so this is the meaning of Vastavam Vastu. So the Vastu is the actual substance from which everything is emanating. So just like in the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, Krishna is telling, famous verse 10.8, what is 10.8?
Aham
sarvasya prabhuvo. Yes, aham sarvasya prabhuvo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. Or 7.7. What is 7.7? Matta parataram na anyat kinchadasti dhananjaya. My protam, what is that? Sutre mani ganaiva. So there is a matta parataram na anyat. There is no truth superior to me. So that is the meaning of Vastu. Means everything is centered around that Vastu, around Krishna. And Vastava means everything else which is in relationship with the Vastu. So that is Krishna and his different energies. So throughout the universe, throughout the creation, there is Krishna's energies. But all those energies are based on Krishna. The source of the energies is Krishna. So therefore, Krishna is the Vastu or the Samam Bonam. And Prabhupada writes that, you can see in this paragraph where he speaks about the Karma Kand, Jnana Kand, Upasana Kand. After describing all that, then Srila Prabhupada writes the Srimad Bhagavatam is superior to all of these because it aims at the supreme truth, which is the substance or the root of all categories. All categories means all energies and everything else. From Srimad Bhagavatam, one can come to know the substance as well as the categories. So the Bhagavatam is describing both the substance as well as the categories, because the substance is there and the categories are always included within that. So Prabhupada gives the example, just like when you talk about the king, then the king's armies, ministers, palaces, everything comes into the picture. So similarly, we talk about Krishna, then Krishna's energies, associates, pastimes, everything is included, and everything else is also described in relationship with Krishna. That's what we find in the Bhagavatam. So in the Bhagavatam, we not only find descriptions about Krishna, but then we also find descriptions about the material world, the creation of the material universes, the material elements, everything else in relationship to Krishna is also there. So that is the meaning of Vastava Vastu. From Srimad Bhagavatam, one can come to know the substance as well as the categories. The substance is the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord, and all emanations are relative forms of energy. Nothing is apart from the substance, but at the same time, the energies are different from the substance. This conception is not contradictory. Okay. And so when one understands Vastavam Vastu, when one understands Krishna and his different energies and everything in relation to Krishna, and what is the result? Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam. Then one can experience auspiciousness and one can become free from the threefold miseries. Tapatrayon Mulanam. Okay, so here Vishwanath Tagore is explaining Vastavam Vastu. Please read.
This permanent object, Vastavam Vastu, indicates the name, form, qualities of the Lord, his abode, such as Vaikuntha, his devotees, and Bhakti. Because our real objects, because other real objects, Vastu, the things of this world are not permanent. It should be understood that though both Vaikuntha and the material world are real, Vaikuntha is really substantial, Vastavam, and the material world is not. Unreal objects such as the flower in the sky are called Avastu. What will happen with gaining this knowledge of permanently real? It gives auspiciousness, Shivadama, in the form of becoming an associate of the Lord with Prema as the desired result. It gives release from the three miseries or liberation, Taptriyanmulanam, as the unsought result.
Okay, so that is the meaning of Shivdam. Shivdam means ultimately one gets prema, one becomes an associate of the Lord, and one gets released from the threefold miseries and even the desire for liberation, everything. One gets free from that because one understands the real purpose. Okay, now the next point is, so this is the result of understanding the Srimad Bhagavatam, which contains subject matters about the Samam Bonam Krishna and his various energies, associates, and everything else in connection. So then he says, Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Vaparer Ishvara. So he says the Srimad Bhagavatam, which has been compiled by Mahamuni. Mahamuni indicates the great sage Vyasadeva. So then what is the need of any other scripture? Okay. There's no need of any other scripture. So it's a rhetoric question. And then he says, what is the result of understanding the Srimad Bhagavatam? Sadhyo Ridhya Avarudyate. So sadhya means at once. Ridhi means within the heart. Avarudyate means become compact. Who becomes compact? Ishvara. Ishvara Sathyo Ridhya Avarudyate. So the Supreme Lord Ishvara becomes compact, or you can say becomes locked up, as Prabhupada is saying here, locked up within the heart. So that's what happens when one understands Krishna by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so now read from the screen. This is Prabhupada's lecture.
If you, instead of making speculation, if you simply surrender to Vyasadeva, his writing, Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krate, then the result will be Kimva Pare. You do not require to study any other literature. The result will be, if you surrender to the study of Srimad Bhagavatam,
a little louder, please.
That Ishwar, the Supreme Controller, Sadhya Hriday Avrudhyate. Ishwara is already there, but here it is used the word Avrudhyate. He is locked up. He wants to be locked up. Krishna Paramatma, he wants to be, but he don't care. But by reading Srimad Bhagavatam by reading Srimad Bhagavatam by discourses in Srimad Bhagavatam, Ishvara Sadhya, immediately Hridaya Avrudyate, but in whose heart he becomes locked up.
In whose heart he becomes locked up? Continue.
Kritibhi. Kritibhi means those who are pious. Those who are sinful, they cannot. Kritibhi Shushrubhi. Two things. He must be pious. That pious pity as soon as he surrenders. That piety as soon as he surrenders, just like Krishna says, piety, it is not that then I have to become pious first of all, then I shall understand Srimad Bhagavatam. So it will take a long time. No, if will take Tatshanat, it will, okay, that's, it will take Tatshanat in a second. In a second. How? Simply by surrender. As soon as you surrender, immediately you become pious. How immediately? Yes, Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Paritajya. Sarva Dharman. As soon as you surrender, Krishna, I was merciless so long. Now, today, I am surrendering unto your lotus feet. Now, if you like, you kill me or protect me as you like. Then everything is all right.
Yes. So
And
as soon as one surrenders to Krishna, one becomes Kritibi, one becomes pious. And then when one becomes pious, one surrenders to Krishna, then Krishna becomes locked up within the heart. So that's what should happen. That's what should happen by studying the Srimad Bhagavatam. Our surrender to Krishna should increase. And by surrender to Krishna, Krishna will be pleased, and Krishna will be pleased to manifest within the heart. Krishna is already there within the heart, but Krishna manifests within the heart, and Krishna will like to be within the heart. He himself likes to be locked up in such a heart where there is love, where there is devotion, where there is surrender. Krishna likes to be locked up in such a heart. So that is the meaning of Ishvara Sadhya Hridaya Avarudyate Atra Kritibi. So that is the result of studying the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is Vishwanath Thakur saying, through the hearing process, the Bhagavatam, which is the most auspicious, Srimad, the Lord Ishvara, the shelter of all else, Sri Krishna is immediately brought under control and captured. Avarudyate is captured in the heart by the accomplished persons, Kritibi, the persons devoid of selfishness, Nirmatsaranam. So Nirmatsaran, if one is Nirmatsar, then that will also increase the piety who are mentioned in this verse as being qualified for the scripture. This indicates that prema arises in devotee. So the Lord being locked up or being captured within the heart means prema arises in the devotee, since the Lord is brought under control by prema. So that's why, if you remember, in the glorification of the Bhagavatam by Sanatana Goswami, he says that there is prema in every word of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Every word of the Srimad Bhagavatam, every syllable is raining prema. So therefore, the result of properly understanding the Srimad Bhagavatam is that one will come to the platform of prema. And when one comes to the platform of prema, Krishna agrees to be locked up in the heart of such a devotee. Krishna agrees to become subservient to such a devotee. Pranaya, Rashanaya, Gritangri Padmaha, the Lord's lotus feet are tied by ropes to the devotee. The Lord's lotus feet are tied by ropes to the devotee. So that is the meaning of Avarudyate. Okay, read this. This is further continuation by Vishwanath Thakur.
Krishna
enters the heart of even those who have suddenly developed the desire to hear from the moment, then begin listening. Since they develop the desire to hear from that moment, even before having faith, it means that they develop prem simply by hearing Bhagavatam. Then how much more quickly then would develop prema if they began hearing with faith? Tat Kshanat can also mean because of Krishna's, yani Tat, merriment of festival, Kshanat. He become caught in the devotee's heart. Since Krishna becomes supremely blissful by being trapped in the heart filled with prem, this also indicates that Krishna is happy and filled with prem when the devotee hear Bhagavatam. This result is not achieved by any other scripture or other practice.
Right. So here he's saying that even if one hears without faith, from the moment they begin hearing, Krishna enters the hearts. Since the moment one begins to hear the Bhagavatam, Krishna is pleased, Krishna enters the heart, even before they have the faith. And then they will develop prema by hearing the Bhagavatam. But if somebody hears with faith, then very quickly, Tatshana, immediately they can develop the prema if one hears with faith. And then he's explaining that Tatshanat also means that there's a festival within the devotee's heart because the heart is filled with prema. So therefore, Krishna is very happy to be in the heart filled with prema. Okay, fine. This is visual action. Okay, fine. So now the last part of the verse is Shushrushubish Tatchanat. Now Prabhupada is commenting on this Shushrushubish very nicely. So somebody can read the last two paragraphs of the purport. The proper method for receiving.
The proper method for receiving this transcendental message is to hear it submissively. A challenging attitude cannot help one realize this transcendental message. One particular word is used herein for proper guidance. This word is shushu. One must be anxious to hear this transcendental message. The desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. May I continue? Less fortunate persons are not at all interested in hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam. The process is simple, but the application is difficult. Unfortunate people find enough time to hear ideal social and political conversation, but when invited to attend a meeting of devotees to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, they suddenly become reluctant. Sometimes professional readers of the Bhagavatam immediately plunge into the confidential topic of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, which they seemingly interrupt as sex literature. Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to be heard from the beginning. Those who are fit to assimilate this work are mentioned in this shloka. One becomes qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam after many pious deeds. The intelligent person with thoughtful discretion can be assured by the great sage Vyasdeva that he can realize the supreme personality directly by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Without undergoing the different stages of realization set forth in the Vedas, one can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramhamsa simply by agreeing to receive this message.
Okay, so another important word here is Shushushubi. That means there must be the proper attitude to hear, and that is a submissive hearing, not a challenging attitude. So the attitude is that I do not know, let me hear, let me try to gain knowledge. Srila Prabhupada often quoted the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, how he approached his spiritual master Ishwar Puri as a fool number one. So that is a proper attitude in trying to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. So if one has that attitude that yes, I need to learn, I need to hear. So that eagerness has to be there. That's the meaning of shushu. As Prabhupada says, one must be anxious to hear. The desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. So just like in Ayurveda, when does digestion take place? The symptom of good digestion is there's hunger. So when there's hunger, it indicates a good appetite. And when there's good appetite, then digestion takes place well. So similarly, there must be hunger to hear the spiritual subject matter. There must be a great eagerness to hear. And when there's great eagerness to hear, then the subject matter sinks in. One can assimilate the subject matter, then one can apply the subject matter, then there'll be realization. Otherwise, if one is simply hearing just for, maybe getting a certificate, or one is hearing because, okay, social pressure or whatever other reasons there could be. If one is simply hearing very mechanically, superficially, and one will get some benefit, but not much benefits. If one actually wants to get the benefit of hearing the Bhagavatam, as Prabhupada is writing here, the desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. That's the first qualification. So one must have that desire to sincerely hear. Then Krishna is pleased with that desire. Then Krishna will manifest within the heart. Then Krishna will give realizations within the hearts. But if one is simply hearing mechanically or simply as a ritual, then one will not gain much. But if one actually wants this result that Vyasadeva is talking about here, where Krishna becomes trapped, Krishna likes to be trapped. Krishna himself becomes locked up, captured within the hearts. But this will only take place when the devotee is eager and sincere to hear the message. Then Krishna becomes pleased. Then Krishna will give so many wonderful realizations. So that is the proper attitude to hear the Bhagavatam. And then one will get the desired results of hearing the Bhagavatam, as mentioned in this verse. Fine. So of course our time is up. We have crossed the time actually. So we'll stop here and we'll continue in our next class. All right.
There is one question.
Question. Okay, fine.
We were talking about the piousness. One who is pious, he is eligible. Then we say, if one is not pious, if he is surrendered, then he is eligible. Then all of a sudden we feel, yes, we are not pious, but we are surrendered. Then we feel, yes, we are not surrendered. Then it comes, then even if one has the desire to hear with faith, that will also go. So out of these three, which one is the
first one? Yes, the first. See, basically, this piety that is being spoken of here is spiritual piety, not material piety. So it is spiritual piety. So spiritual piety comes by spiritual activities.
Okay.
So the spiritual activity is hearing. So when one hears and performs devotional service, then one becomes kritibi. So then one becomes pious. Then the more one, so even to hear, some surrender has to be there. Some surrender has to be there. So then with some little surrender initially, one hears. Then as one hears, one becomes more pious. As one becomes more pious, one surrenders more. And that's how the piety keeps on increasing. And then Krishna is pleased. Then Krishna becomes locked up within the heart. Avarudya.
Okay.
Is it okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much for your kind attention. And so we look forward to your association again next time. Hare Krishna. Was the speed okay or?
It is good one, good one.
That's perfect, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your valuable time.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank
Hare
you so much.
Krishna.
Thank you so
Shri
much.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Granthar Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samved Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Shivadan Prabhuji ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
आपको नहीं कहती मम्मी अभी मत यूज करना प्लीज मैं तो नहीं कर रही हूँ तो जाओ नहीं खाने उसमें भी नहीं जाना करता बंद करता इधर ही बंद कर दे पापा दे रहे बेटा बताओ बताओ हो गया
ये इसमें क्या लिखा है जरा पढ़ना बेटा। ये क्या है? एक पार्टिसिपेंट है, अभी कोई